It's the last round of SFCL. It's the last game, excuse me, before the last round. We've got the final elimination game ahead of us. Lycus Empire versus Decimate. Both of these teams up against the wall. One of them will survive to go to the decider game, and one of them will be done with SFCL Season 6. I am Lycus. Joining me is Infernosis Scott. He's back from his little boo-boo that he had last night. He's feeling a lot better, and I'm glad he's here to join me.
No one else is going to get that contact. Not a single other person besides people that work
I
for
did
SFCL.
say that you were injured last night.
All right, you
so
highlighted it. Yes, yes. I had a bit of an oopsie, but I tell you what, these teams are having a bit of an oopsie, having been brought to the point of being eliminated, right? You never want to be there, and the top teams never have to worry about that till the latter stages. Both of these teams, narrow margins for victory in the slight victories that they've had, and those have been, to be frank, very few and far between, exiting into the main season. A 1-2 stat line. A pretty horrendous margin, but that's pretty much what we expect from everybody that's going to get eliminated. The only win to come out here for Lycus, the team that is the favorite going out into this matchup, is out against Outlast, which is the team that was just above them on the bracket. So there is maybe a case to be said that Lycus can sit in a very solid state in the middle of this bracket for this season of the SFCL, but the same thing most definitely cannot be said against Decimate, whose only victory was against a fellow team that was sitting at third to last and also had a very terrible season up to this point.
Yeah, both of these teams, they've got a lot to look forward to, but a lot to look back on. As we head into the maps, we can see where we're not going. No more Oregon and Chalet and Theme Park. I don't know what it is about these teams. They are loving Theme Park. It is getting played. It's the second most played map. Only second to Villa, which we're not seeing. Thank above. It's Clubhouse as our decider, and I would really like to see these two teams duke it out on Clubhouse, but that would mean that one of them would have to take each of these maps, which, like, is going to Chalet, and Decimate, we've actually seen them on Theme Park. It's when they lost to West Garfield Park 7-8, so they've got some previous history on that, and that was a very close game. I had the honor of casting it, and a couple things maybe go their way. They do beat West Garfield Park, which, I mean, they have SI points, so
yeah, that's more than you can say for some of the other teams out there, that's for sure. Now, big brownie points for me, the fact that Chalet gets picked up and is first, so you know I'm going to root for the team that picks it, but a bit of a curse here, V. Every time I've been on for SFCL so far here, when it's reached into the stages where we're in eliminations and it's full BO3s, it's gone to every single map when I've been casting it. Despite my woes and worries about it and being very upset about that fact, because I have plans, you know, such as dinner, because I never eat beforehand because I'm an idiot, or just, you know, trying to have my afternoon not be entirely swallowed by the SFCL. It has failed to have that occur. All three have always been here. And I'm expecting Clubhouse to also come forward, considering the precedent that's been set with me here. But Chalet on the chopping block first and foremost, Light Rose, and this is by far my favorite map. Control on Mezzanine is going to be so important for Decimate to lock onto. A lot of the times you see that second floor office and master bedroom objective fall back into more of the Quaternary role. That fourth selected objective no longer in those top three, but this is the SFCL. You'll probably see it at least once or twice, even though it's not highly liked.
oh yeah, we always see almost every single map. I think the second floor is definitely leaning towards a more niche pick by now, with bar gaming a lot of times maybe being the primary, basement and kitchen swapping between secondary and tertiary. And with Decimate starting on the defense first off, they get the option of where they want to head, and Lycus starting on the attack. We didn't get to see the bands, or excuse me, not the bands, we didn't get to see the stat lines and the rosters, as we're wanting to zip on into things, get everything started. We actually go straight through the band phase. We don't have to fuddle around for a little bit because the bands are as easy as ever. The Kevi Nook, Valkyrie Solis, nobody is surprised by that.
Let's go ahead and highlight these players as well. Aggro is giving a big, you know, appreciation to all the viewers out there. And just as soon as you're about to start talking about the text on the screen, the text decides to disappear just as quickly. For the Lycus side, it's Ozone, Aggro, Brios, Cryptix, and Candle. For the Decimate squad, it's Scoob, Neo, Twizzler, Needles, and Focal. And on top of that, both of these teams bringing out full team representation. You hate seeing subs sometimes. Sometimes you'll love seeing it if they absolutely go ham like they did last week when I was on broadcast with Joe. We saw a huge play from both the subs that came forward in that game. But you like to see the full team with their tags all together, showcasing that they have the best possible players here to close things out on this first map.
I'm just glad that we're not in SCS territory with what Luminosity brought out, with what Astralis did. That was one of the most frustrating broadcast experiences. It's unimaginable. I am so glad we're never going anywhere near that. And as well, Lycus, they actually start on the defense, actually. Instead of the attack, they choose to go to that second floor and bringing out a pretty anchor-heavy type of roam, a zombie castle of Rooney, mainly designed for keeping a lot of these attackers outside of where you want them to be. Drain some utility, ash nades, frag grenades, everything, soaking up what the attack can bring, and we'll see if that's going to be a good play long term.
One of the biggest weaknesses to this objective is the direct line of approach you have in towards that office door frame that comes from that outside veranda, as well as the windows that lead directly into Solarium, which is where we see a lot of the presence from Decimate currently brewing up. Lycus have opted for a bit more of a passive approach to their defense. They have those castle barricades to really lock down some of those open door frames that do lead to a direct line of sight in towards the objective, and the Surya gates are another great avenue to be able to deny anticipated entry from Decimate, or at least to slow them down ever so slightly. A zombie barricades as well on the board. Scoop takes a lick of damage from Brios, just a couple shots their way to maybe try to tag them down, not enough to get the job just yet. Decimate are about to entry in, but Heba barricades go out and Ozone will lock it down as quick as they can. Nate tossed through, it goes over towards the stairwell instead, where Candle currently lies in wait. Fortunately for them, no damage tagged their way, but Decimate have been absolutely stalwart in their attempt to take the Solarium window. They refuse to start to peruse another option here, V. They want to absolutely funnel in here to create sightlines for their players down below Museum and just try to find an angle in towards site.
They've been persistent, but that really hasn't amounted to much. Only now, with aggro going down, do they finally get something, but with Candle pushing up on Solarium stairs, it's immediately eliminated. There is going to be, Candle does go down, and now Decimate, they can fully realize on getting that wall open, pushing up those Solarium stairs, but with Ozone hiding in the bathroom, and Cryptix waiting by the actual door itself, if Decimate don't use their information, they don't drone it out, they don't just create some chaos for the defense to find home in, it's not gonna go well. But just as I say that, the defense collapses, and Decimate, they spent a lot of time on the window, but I guess it was a lot of time they locked in for the attack.
Basement has no direct windows into the objective. Dealing with first 4 games only has one big window to the objective and a hatch that you're actually going to defend on that second floor. Why are you opting to go for that second floor hold up in master bedroom and officer piano when you know for a fact that there are so many outlets of attack for the attacking side of Decimate to work from? Window after window, kill after kill, applying a little bit of pressure from Yana on that first floor, working it through that museum side and that trophy side, and trying to get pressure over towards a player on that elbow staircase. It is just too much to try to fight back against. So I think a very poor first round decision from the very beginning. Yes, they did bring things to a somewhat narrower margin, but Decimate just had too many possibilities available to them that allowed for them to chokehold the defense that was left available for themselves. And once you start suffocating, you enter panic mode. You start moving around the wrong way. You start to make mistakes, and that's where Decimate was capitalizing.
It went well for Lycus early on. They had everything they needed to. You wasted every single bit of explosive utility. Nothing was gained on those windows, and then it just slowly got chipped away Right, making sure we've got some technical issues. We're trying to figure out all that nice little buzz that you saw early on in that round one to get it figured out. We have, and we can go into round two, actually not on the basement, instead on the kitchen side. So there are windows over by that armory side, but definitely not as indicative as it was on the second floor. But they're still trying to hurry themselves up, really huddled down on that top floor with the shields that they're bringing with Candle, Cryptics, the Warden as well with the aggro, because there's not a Ying Ban on the board. So the small chance that it's brought on the attack, you want to make sure you're prepared, as well with the smoke plant that there's always a possibility for.
That was another thing we didn't really have the time to touch up on going into this map was the actual operator bans going forward. Lycus took off Solus, realizing that if they're going to start off on the defense, they don't want to face it off against later, because Chile tends to be a little bit more towards the 3 and 3/2 in more recent periods of time. They did knock off Dokumi, meaning they can have an effective roam game on this map to allow for them to stay a little bit safer and a little bit more, I would say, unapproachable for the attacking side against them. Yes, they could still bring out the Jack with the Inox scanner, but not able to get everyone all at the same time for a generalized location to cut them off on those roams and, you know, extensions away from sight. Decimate decided to ban out the Nook and the Valkyrie. Very standard bans. Nook has been extremely dominant here in the SFCL this season. On top of that, the Valkyrie has pretty much been a guaranteed ban since her release, so nothing's expected to change there. But Decimate, after the successful first round, Lycus will see that as a enviable position, and they'll try to rotate their objective choice down to the first floor towards that kitchen and dining side, and they'll opt for a much more defendable location, as there is really only one direct window leading over towards that site, and it's not even direct into the objective. It is direct to the hallway that connects the two, but not the actual rooms themselves.
Oh, Neo just walks on into the office. He's able to find one, uses that doorway just to gain a little bit of a difference between him and Ozone, and that does allow for actually not a kill, but a death for Scoob. But Neo uses that time, pushes on forward, and now should be able to get the revive onto Needles in bathroom. But Candle playing oh so patient, knowing that the bait of the Frostmat maybe could find one more, but instead that second kill onto Neo does not present itself. Instead, it's a bullet to the head for him. So instead of Lycus really gaining the advantage here like they probably should have, they end up with a disadvantage to the man count, -1, and now Decimate can take all the time they need to break open the floor with the Rotero drones, potentially use the one frag grenade that Neo has in his back pocket to get one more kill or just some more map control to get this execution down.
Neo's job has been effectively done already with that extremely successful push in through to that second floor. Twizzler still lying up above, Rotero drones no longer available, having already been used, but Flashbang still lingering in the back pocket could be a great denier of sightlines for that Lycus defense. Neo's going to tease over towards the Slayerm staircase, gets zoned away by the Toxic Babe sent by Cryptics. There is still the major concern in the pressing matter of the players hiding around these corners. One has been spotted. It's Cryptics who elbow barriers around that corner, and those shots get sent their way. None of them will tag against them. Nate tossed through the open hole, the hatch on that second floor master bedroom, and Decimate are just biding their time until Lycus makes mistakes. But Lycus have been playing very passively, very smart. Another Toxic Babe sent out. Close out for aggro onto Focal. Position is necessarily known, but they can't get the shot off in time on aggro, netting them one more kill. Just Twizzler in the 1v1. Lying down behind the dining room table, Twizzler has no time to push this engagement. They'll stand up for it anyways. And aggro will take a risky 1v1, but it nets off in the end, tying things up, going 1-1 as Lycus say we're finally back in this.
It is a risky 1v1, but 2 seconds, it feels like such a short amount of time, but it is more than enough to get a sprint and get those 2 to 3 bullets that you need in your body. And with the positioning that the player was in, it just wasn't opportune to really stay down, pray that you weren't going to get shot, and I think aggro would have won that. Like, he clearly had the upper hand in that engagement. So Lycus, they're able to win that out. It still isn't one that inspires a lot of confidence, because early on in that round, they weren't aware of Neo. They weren't really able to take him down early on. And, you know, Neo is a good player. We all saw him in SES. We've seen what he is able to do. If you shut down Decimate's biggest franger, you are going to have a much better time in in this round, and that's what this basement site can be. Get that lead, get that confidence back, and make sure that you just hold your ground like you did in that first game, but with that little finish you had in the second round.
Looks like Decimate are going to have to face off against the basement hold here for Lycus. They have the Vulcan canisters placed on the double wall, the garage wall that's placed by Aggro. A run out attempted by Brios alongside Candle does get them one kill, but unfortunately Candle left outside. I would dare say the worst of the two to fall in that engagement. So you now no longer have the Azami barricades to work with, and those would have tallied up over time. You're very limited in those utility that were available at the beginning of the round. You do still have the gamer shades though, so you can at least look pizzazzy and style for the rest of this round 3. Scoop's going to go ahead and breach down the garage wall, only 25 seconds having gone down with the time of his expulsion, and that gives Decimate plenty of time to continue to apply pressure into that garage door. Maybe would have expected to play for a more basement direct approach, maybe through that first floor down to the stairwell, taking control over towards garage, considering their operator selection. But if they already have control over a sightline, they have a great way to deny rotates for Decimate from one objective to the other, and that gives for Lycus, and that gives Decimate plenty of chances to diversify their approaches and force Lycus to not sit still.
Talk about how you take down Decimate's biggest fragger, Neo, and maybe I spoke it into existence. Maybe I cursed him to be spawn peeked by Candle, but it is still, the job is done. You got the refrag, and now with Ozone holding on the library stairs, it's a big play that if it can be held down correctly, maybe even if Needles can just be repelled for what, 20-30 more seconds, then honestly, job is done. At this point, the roam is still getting value, even with 1 minute and 15 seconds left, and Decimate really aren't using their time wisely. They're dedicating so much time to maybe positioning themselves towards the site, but they're not ready for Ozone to push up to blue. They're not ready for Aggro over by the kitchen. There's only one player inside the site, if that, but it's still enough to repel the Decimate attack for now.
Huge play to knock Neo off the board first and foremost. Having Needles join after the fact, they have no great entry approach in towards site. No more aggressive player. One of these players here for the side of Decimate that's remaining is going to have to change up their mindset and play style to gain ground. Twizzler gets a little bit of pacing off towards Aggro. Does equalize our man count a little bit closer, equalizing to a 3 versus 3, but Lycus have the advantage still of control. Ozone may be in a tight space. I think their cubby position is known, but Focal nails a gorgeous shot over to Ozone, clearing them away from that corner as expected, and Scoob off-site, off-screen I should say, managed to get a successful plant off towards the actual corner staircase. Brios missing an inopportune shot, gets a wonderful swing back towards Twizzler, and it is just Focal now left to defend here in the 1v2. Brios sticking this defuse. Cryptics will watch the stairwell, and that's all she'll write, as it will be a Lycus defensive round win because Decimate just couldn't position themselves correctly for the post plant, and the few players they had remaining there for it got cut off and killed just lickety-split.
And there wasn't really much the player over by blue could have done in that situation, because at that point you just have two options. You push over by blue, or you go for that very, very long rotate, which A, I don't even know if they would have arrived in time, and B, you can't sprint and also have your gun up. So the fact that they were so clearly able to retake the actual bomb site itself once that diffuser got down, Decimate just were not really prepared for that early push by Lycus. I'm guessing that mentally they were still feeling like, okay, maybe they'll play back, maybe they'll use the time just to mentally prepare themselves for the actual assault, but no, Lycus don't really work that way. When they see an opportunity, they will grab it. They are not a team to and ha their situation. I mean, we saw Candle. He will literally jump out. And I'm guessing we will see that a lot of times in this map, maybe in this series overall. And if Lycus can continue to get opportunities like that, they will continue to do it.
Keep in mind as well, Decimate have now given up 2 rounds in a row. Last one, more likely than not, off the back of the fact that Neo got run out upon and caught off guard. Maybe the chance for Lycus to repeat the same exact thing here in this round, but Candle, one of the players that did leap out just the round previously, has opted to go for a bit more of a cheeky approach, lying down prone down on the first floor. Will rotate up through the Solarium staircase up to Solarium and possibly be a little bit more direct on that window defense. Still sitting on that staircase, realizing they're trapped much like they were on round 1 when Candle was there. And we saw them net 1 kill, but that was after they had lost 2 teammates and put the side of Lycus in a pretty poor strait, which ultimately led to Decimate's round win. Twiz still holding that angle, Twizzler doing their best. But they need to diversify their position by starting to peruse through that bathroom window as well, through that highway side. Gain control towards that piano window, maybe start to cut off concerns to rotate away from that master bedroom, as well as being able to cut off the players trying to retreat back towards the bathroom side. And that will make it so that Lycus will have to go gun up engagement, where Decimate have too much utility to overcome with a plethora of flashbangs still in their pocket.
They still got a frag grenade to use, so that still can root out a player holding by Solarium stairs. Focal still has 3 flashbangs to use to break Surya gates, break open magnets, and I believe that is similar to the exact same engagement we saw earlier. Maybe not the same death, but Focal got us kicked off in round 1, and just like in round 1, it's an immediate refrag coming from a player on the side of Lycus. But Solarium Stairs is getting cracked a little bit early on. 30 seconds more for Decimate to work with, but if Lycus can hold their ground, be more flexible where they're playing it, and if Candle can stay on those Solarium Stairs, then they should hold their ground a lot better than that first round. And I think as the clock continues to tick down, that's what we're seeing. There's no more frag grenades left. It's really just going to be a jump in for Decimate at this point.
Decimate had sent players down on the first floor to cut off Candle in the first place. Candle's escape and actual eventual frag that they gained was quite a shocking foray that came in through in that first round. Thankfully, assistance on the first floor, Brios, lingering over towards that main landing, as well as in towards that kitchen side, has cut off and alleviated a lot of the concerns that Decimate could bring that way. But Decimate are not done yet here with the windows. One held for big window and master bedroom. They will have a player swing over in towards library and maybe look to cut off a player on mezzanine. That's where Brios is maybe looking to swing up over on that blue stair side, but still have to deal with Scoob, who's lying in towards that big window like I mentioned previously. They have not been dealt with, and they just have to bide their time for Lycus to make the mistake. Scoob will swing in through the Surya gate. They'll get a nice frag over towards Candle. Twizzler will fall from the hands of Aggro, though. That does equalize thanks to a 2-on-2, but the diffuser has to go down, and there's just no time. Lycus will win off the back of that, and it'll be another defensive round in a row for an attacker-favored map.
Funny enough, in that round, it felt like it was even the same by the end, with Solarium eventually tipping towards Decimate, the same player outside of big window. But Lycus didn't put all their eggs in one basket. They didn't have a lot of players holding by the bathroom like they did in that first round, and because of that, you still had 2 players left alive. The anchors were able to hold down, and as the clock, it ticked all the way down to triple zeros. You saw with 2 players left alive, there was just nothing that Scoob could do in that situation, and we're going to a timeout. It's a pretty good time for a timeout because Lycus are only now really starting to get that momentum. You're halting it, forcing them to just take a little bit of a reprieve, and now Decimate can use that 60 seconds to focus on what the heck is happening. And there is a lot to focus on as they have 2 more rounds on their attack. They can look a little bit towards the defense, but I think right now you're focusing on still getting that 3-4-2 at the most, because now it is really going to be about kitchen. Funny enough, I don't think we saw Bar Gaming, which does seem to be the target now, but it is, or at least in my opinion, the most popular site on Chalet, and it is really going to hurt Decimate that they have to attack this for the first time instead of a repeat. And Lycus, I mean, they have all the cards right now because they're going to this site for the first time. Decimate don't know anything that the defense is going to bring.
It's not about cards here. It's more like they still have all their solids ready to be pocketed, and there's nothing really left for the other side.
They
have one in the
aces up their pockets. Like,
no, but here's the thing. It's a billiards table.
Are we just... I feel like you can make the same comparison, but different games. All right, billiards. I've said my cards. How is this billiards, Scott?
No, I'm just saying you're highlighting the wrong game. There's a billiards table in this objective. It's a missed opportunity here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's my bad. I always like capitalize on that. And the fact that I missed that, it's a rare L for me, honestly.
L for V. Either way, Lycus have not taken an L since round 1. Very good approach against Decimate. But there's a bit of an issue. Decimate, off the back of that timeout, now get to attack the one objective that Lycus have avoided, which means that Decimate can take a very direct approach. We saw how good they can be on those windows approaches. Imagine how good they can be firing through the windows when they actually can stand still and directly and, I guess, correctly control their characters in a bit more of a approachable way, as repelling hasn't always been the cleanest fashion of movement. Lycus will avidly avoid the majority of that, I would say, far side, more towards Piano. They don't want to avoid that side of the map, the northern edge. They will say, hey, mezzanines are playing ground. We don't need to have an extension or a roamer. Bring someone down to the first floor. Rest will hide over on the second. A very passive approach towards what Decimate will be bringing. But even with that passivity, V, Decimate have already lost 60 seconds of time, and at best, they've only just now realized no one's on that extension, and they still don't feel 100% safe after the fact.
Man, actually not going for a direct library take like we usually see the attack do. Doc isn't going to get as much value, because usually with the strat now, the strat TM, is you put Doc in that corner, he can just tank a lot of fire, he can tank any missed frag grenades, and the attack just really can't do anything about this. But Decimate are just completely ignoring that entirely. They're going from an office side over. It does start with Neo getting that entry, but I think Scoop might have walked in a frost mat by himself over by Kochek. And even though Decimate, they do get something here with Candle, I still feel like the map control that they're ignoring may come back to bite them. Also Scoob in chat.
Ruh-roh, Scoob. Things aren't looking so good for you. Feet, a lot like me yesterday, to be frank. Needles, though, trying to slow peek in towards the bar side. Unfortunately, their teammate and themselves will succumb to fire from the opposite side. Cryptics from behind bar itself, and of course, aggro on that second floor. Like you were highlighting that decision and strategy just moments prior. Scoob will be recollected from their DB&O state and will be allowed to continue to fight and engage here in this round. Not sure where their hard breaches will be utilized here, but Lycus may have to keep their eye out for, I guess, peaks and angles that aren't necessarily expected from the get-go that they created themselves. Ozone will be zoned away off the last nade tossed out here for the Decimate side. Neo attempting to gain something out of nothing, but look at this attempt here from Decimate. 2 players. There's the Selmas I was mentioning previously, giving them a direct line of access in towards bar and cutting off the defensive angle available from back of bar. Scoob following behind Neo. Neo direct into the objective. They'll lose their head to Cryptics behind in towards Stock and Pantry. Tizzler will move in through the games room side instead, though DB&O Cryptics leaving just aggro and a 1v2. Scoob may be low, but the job's not done. Aggro has to do everything by themselves still. With 3 stims in the pocket, they'll need to choose these engagements quickly, and though they can heal themselves up, they have to actually survive the initial gunfight. They'll have to play against their own Pantry peak holes, and it just is not going to work. Decimate will perfectly play the post plant, and that will net themselves a much needed round win after their timeout.
I loved Decimate's approach to the Mira. Really ignoring supply, because once you see that inside of games, you just have to ignore it. You cannot try to attack that site, so instead they mainly go from the fireplace in the hallway, forcing the Mira out of the supply closet, and even though they do lose a body for it, I think that was the key to winning the round, was making sure supply closet was not played, because if you've ever watched any 1vx or comeback scenarios happen on Chalet Bar games, it always occurs from supply, because it's such a power position to be in, especially if you do not have any vertical play. And with Decimate, they were calm, they were collected, and they played their game correctly. And now they've got a round win for it. Now we go back down to the basement. This wasn't very good for them, especially when that post plant, we really saw the tide turn after a while, and it especially seemed like Decimate could start to go on a roll in this map, but I think that was the first time we really started to see Lycus warm up. It's a true test as we go into this final round of the half on whether Lycus, they can get that advantage going into their attacking half, or if Decimate, they can make sure they even it on up. And I think if they do make it a 3-3, the odds are really going to be in their favor despite the scoreline technically being even.
Decimate did a wonderful job in that last round of playing the final few engagements. Yes, Lycus did make a comeback in it, finding eventual frags and evening things up, but Decimate knew what they needed to do. Swing 2 in from that trophy side, swing Neo directly in towards Bar from that kitchen hallway. That gives you control over a lot of angles, and yes, Neo did die from, I believe, Cryptix that was lingering back behind in towards Supply, but that also told you exactly where Cryptix was. And how soon after did Decimate find the kill? Wasn't even 5-6 seconds after the fact. They swung one in behind Neo and Bar, and the other one went through game. Cryptix had to watch both angles and got caught off guard and netting them in that kill. That was a wonderful play by Decimate, and if they continue to do exactly that, Lycus will struggle. But they don't have the same, I would say, luxury here on this basement side as they did previously attacking against Lycus. Decimate previously on this objective fell short. They didn't have to deal with longer angles being held by Lycus on the first floor. And on top of that, Decimate has also struggled using actual, I would say, longevity for their strategies. It's one and done. If it doesn't work, switch to a whole new one. There is no changing the eventual one and done. It just feels like they're sticking to a very standard straight-on approach when they could be changing things up, adding more flavor, adding more verticality on top of that. It doesn't feel like they're using the floorboards effectively, but look at the kills they've gotten effectively here. 4 off the board. Gorgeous display from Decimate as Lycus look to be done here in this round. It will be a 3-3 half unless Aggro can pull off a miracle.
I mean, there's been some crazy plays as Aggro inside of Connect here with a player on the stairs, player in blue. He does drop Scoop, who had that diffuser, but now the Horde has known his position, and will not one more kill will be seen from Aggro. He had his time in the spotlight. It was very short, and, well, it had a highlight, but nothing much more than that. So, 3-3. I'm still on the side of Decimate. I'm sticking by my word, and they choose to go to Bar Gaming. First, bring that dog, bring that Frost and a Rooney that we usually would see with a type of bar defense, actually with the Oryx as well. So instead of really holding down inside of Library, it seems like they're going to hold outside of it with the Rooney and the Frost, and then potentially with an Oryx and a Jaeger, maybe hold over by Office, because everything is gearing towards a roam gameplay. You stick one player on site, make sure that they don't get rushed, and then just focus on where the attack is coming from, how you can adapt. And I think depending on what Lycus chooses to do, that can be the correct decision, but it is all about how Lycus want to attack this. Do they want to do what Decimate did on their own bar gaming defense and go from the Office side? Then they should counter that. But if they go from a Library over, that might be a struggle if Decimate doesn't rotate properly.
I highlighted that Decimate were not using verticality as much as they should have. That last round, they were actually prepared to do exactly that. They brought the fuse out to do the old cheeky strategy of using the charges to break down the main lobby and get rid of all the floorboards and essentially make the basement side a hell of a place to be frank. An athlete-fitting term for it. But Decimate had killed so many players, there was really no chance to do so. They did it, but it was never an option for true success. I do like that the availability was there, and they used that as a strategy. Great dive in here from Lycus. Candle netting themselves one kill. Does DBNO Neo, but in through that hatch from the player, but inside of stock, it's Scoob to DBNO them right back. Candle can be picked back up. That Library side is 100% completely safe. You'll see Ozone go up then through that small window, and more likely than not pick up their teammate and maybe move to capitulate that further towards Neo, but Neo gets picked up in perfect time to allow for them to go for the next kill, and they get it themselves.
The rotate is here, and that means that Neo assuming the position of their previous comrade. If Candle does not get revived, it's essentially a 2v2, now a 2v1, as Aggro is in a very unfortunate situation because Lycus had such an explosive start to this round. You take out the player holding inside of library, you take out the player holding behind it. It's everything you want for this style of attack, and now that Candle has officially been dropped out of this round, it's a tall order for aggro to win this 1v2 on the Bar Gaming site with no real player to push and that defender out of supply that I talked about way back when. And now that Sound will give off his position, making this so much harder. And as he pushes into Bar, he just takes a lot more damage. Any decision he makes is going to have consequences, and there really isn't a way out of this, Scott.
Proximity alarm also giving away their position as they rotate in towards that fireplace side, and it just is going to fall short. All the way back inside Billiards, long shot through the soft wall, into the door frame leading into Bar, and it is all she wrote. Decimate will put a pin in that Lycus attack that started so fruitfully. A kill netted from Candle, swinging in onto the Azami sitting at sorry, it's not Azami. I'm blanking on this one entirely. Get a kill on your player lying inside library. Swing over to Neo, who should have been dead by all straights, but the round essentially saved by your player lying inside of stock. It was a game changer for Decimate. It was the only reason why they saw themselves climb back into it. Candles, DBNO, and Neo being picked back up. And look at how much Neo did by the end of that round. 2 kills on Mezzanine, an eventual rotate away, and being that assisting player that can bait or refrag your actual still full HP player lying on side. It was a gorgeous display for Decimate, and Lycus just played, unfortunately, a hand that fell short despite it having a very solid start to itself.
Rooney, Azami, Amaru, Ace, Alibi. Say we're gonna do the tongue twister challenge with A's. All right, I need you to say it 5 times fast, Scott. Rooney, Azami, Amaru, Ace, Alibi. Come on.
I don't think so well today, B. I don't think so well today. Still recovering.
Did I? I'm looking up the roster. Oh yeah, we've also got Ash.
Ash.
What else? What else we got?
I think that's it for Ace. Am I right?
I mean, Ace. It is not original to have an operator with an A name in Rainbow Six Siege. So do not add any more, game, please. It is already really hard for us casters when you have an Aruni on the board and an Azami on the board and an Alibi on the board like we have had in the multiple of these rounds.
We need a new A that's actually just useless. I think that's what we need. A character that has no limelight, a character that has no bonuses, that just makes it so that they'll never be seen, but their name starts with an A. Neo takes a huge lick of damage. Unfortunately, will survive that if you're a Lycus fan. Though having already taken Needles off the board, the doc that tends to only get better the longer they can survive, purely because they have those stims to help the rest of the team. Losing them first kind of sucks. Makes really poor use of that full kit. Maybe if it was a castle, you could say, hey, job's done. You gave everyone their armor, but you don't even get the drip after the fact. It's just a stim that goes nowhere. Ozone will ensure that Neo joins Needles in the afterlife. Cryptic's working from that piano window, maybe looking for a chance for a kill, but the kill goes the other way onto 2 of their cohorts. Candles and Brios now off the board effectively for the Decimate side, as they will equalize thanks to a 3-on-3. Kiba Barricade goes out, and Scoob, now out of options for it, will just continue to linger around and be a constant pestering thorn. And Lycus' side as they start to engage more towards these objectives, with Cryptics just having leapt through that piano window.
And Lycus can choose to play the vertical game. They don't have the sledge, but there's a small amount of holes that they could choose to use. The hatch is still there, but I think that sledge not being here is a big difference maker from the attack and the defense, because at this point, all you can really do is drone out. Hope a flank comes to you, and then that is where you can find the advantage. And I don't know if that's going to happen. Scoob is going to go up this fireplace, maybe cursing me here. That could give the advantage to Lycus, or it could send them further in the grave, depending on how this goes, because nobody really seems to be aware of this. Cryptix is breaking the Kiba barrier, but Scoob decides it's not worth it. Heads all the way back down as he hears all of those charges, all the DMR shots going through the floor, and knowing that the defense will need him as the execution happens. It's going to start sooner than later, but a player's death is going to be the ignition. Is it going to be aggro? Is it going to be focal? Find out in the next 20 seconds.
Time ticking away. Lycus will lose the player first. Cryptics off the board. Twist getting a second one. Twizzler, sorry, a second one on top of it. A nasty treat for the Decimate side. Ozone has to go for the rebag onto Twizzler. Time running out. These players need to go for a plant. A third kill for Ozone, but they turn in time! But it's not fast enough. Scoob will shut down the plethora of kills netted back in return, and it just won't add up. Decimate have continued to bring the pressure. They've continued to win rounds. That is now make it 4 in a row to match what Lycus had done previously and even go above and beyond, now forcing the timeout from Lycus Empire, who had just found no answer to the dominance that Decimate had brought. 12 and 3v. Scoob has been an entirely new menace. Where are the Scooby snacks? Because this man's ate them all.
Man, seeing that 1vx, that 1v3, sometimes it feels like a player is destined to win it. You get one, you get two, and you're swinging towards the third. You have the crosshair aimed at them. There's enough time to get the kill, and then they just un-ADS. I was rooting for Lycus in that moment because seeing the 1vx happen is so exciting, and yet it was taken away from us at the last second. But Decimate did a good job at rebounding from those early kills, losing a lot of roamers off the site, yet holding their ground. It's always a little bit soft from Lycus early on when they went on their turn. When Decimate took their first time out, the sides have swapped though. Momentum is not on Lycus' side here. And I think that round was their first chance at really stopping the gigantic rock from rolling down the hill. But it is on its way down. You have let Decimate get 4. They get to go back to all those sites that they want to with the second floor. And you know that even though their roamers may have not had a good time on that second floor, they will be able to hold this down, still bringing out the dock, still having a lot of those shields that Lycus may destroy, but Decimate always just find a way to hold their ground. The attack, I think, even though this isn't map point, it might be their last chance.
Please, 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 Lycus, change things up. The attack has been aggressive. It's been naughty. It's not been nice. And that unfortunately goes in both terms of it. You have gotten a lot of kills on a Decimate, but when that starts to fall apart, your team falls apart. Change things up. You can't just be a team that's so single-mindedly in on this one style of attack, this one style of play. Find something else. Decimate defensively. They've already gotten themselves 1 round away from that match point they've been looking for on their opposition's map pick. But now that we're having to direct approach the master bedroom side once again, Lycus will start to do the same thing Decimate did. A player over towards the solarium window. Not 2 like there was for the Decimate side. The other player nearby being Candle, that's locking down that first floor, that trophy rotate over towards the solarium staircase. Needles, the player actually lying on that staircase, while assistance has finally been brought over towards Solarium Hall, will bite the back of a nade. Almost 2, in fact. As now Brios will send another one their way. It's too far gone. Doesn't bounce far enough, but the second does. What a play once again. Candle and your Sledge of Brios opting to use every single nade in their back pocket to clear one player, but that is a huge boon to your side. Long shots on Brios to tag down Focal. Focal will be forced to use a stim, but that's what it's there for. Swinging back over once again. No one in Master Bathroom. No one perusing towards that window side. They've gained control of Solarium. They'll have to fight back. Focal gets the upper hand, but it now only evens the odds for a 4-on-4.
And I think they kind of got lucky taking out Needles there. One frag grenade just bounced off the window, but the second one was there. The bigger part is even though they do take one down, they are able to find the refrag for Ozone. Twizzler is there. And now just it's a refrag fest on both sides, with Lycus eventually getting the advantage. They get that diffuser and they're knocking right outside of the site. I mean, this is getting a little concerning for Decimate, but as Scoop pushes up, he could have gotten a nasty little kill through that barricade. I just think that the window may have not presented itself in the nicest of angles, but Scoop is continuing his heater, and I think there are 3 more kills waiting around the corner if he can play his cards right.
Neo, pretty stuck in place at this point. Drones finding and snuffing them out as best they can. A long shot from Brios over on the master bedroom side will finally eliminate their player and that concern, but they lost another teammate in the same fell swoop. Lycus still maintaining that man advantage. If the refrag session you were talking about previously continues to go underway, then Lycus will find themselves victorious. But unfortunately, one of their players has relocated back outside and is on the rappel for Solarium. Maybe enough of the soft wall has been broken forward to give themselves control over the defusal and deny the defuse itself. But Brios is in a fight for their life on side against Neo, and Neo gets the upper hand. Brios has been DBNO, no chance to be picked back up, and now it's a chance for the defuse. No one on site. They know they're going to be playing in towards window. Neo will find the cheekiest angle they possibly can to go for the defuse, and it's just far enough away.
It's a wrap.
Aggro has no chance to go for it. Round is done. Decimate have pulled it off once again, as Lycus Empire have no idea what the hell they're doing for that post plant.
You have to prepare for that. That's like a worst case scenario, is that what if there's a long arm and just that small little door frame. Lycus aren't really playing like themselves. Their attack feels like it's running into a wall over and over again, especially with their late round. They've been able to get 3 entry kills on their attack. You want to know how many attacking rounds they've won, Scott? 0. They have won 0 rounds, and maybe it's because they can't put that finishing touch. They can't have that composure, which is surprising considering how well overall their team is doing. I mean, their lowest is 5 kills. Their highest is 7. They've been such a good team when it comes to just playing around each other, and yet in that scenario, they don't play the refrag well, which is something they did earlier on in that first minute and a half. It's like you're playing 2 teams at one point. Early round Lycus and late round Lycus. And they just cannot coordinate.
They don't have the clutch factor. They don't have the composure to secure the ending of these rounds. I highlighted it. Lycus played the refrag. I copied what you said. They were playing the refrag session. They were going 1 for 1. They had the advantage after first pick. And that's something they've been very good about. Why is your player repelling outside of Solarium when there is not a direct angle for the defuse? Your coach, your play, the scrims you would do, I guarantee you used them. You've used that strategy and built it up. And nobody's used it against you. Decimate of all teams is the team that shows you something unexpected from your own strategy. It just seems like a huge failure on the part of Lycus to predict and overcome such a simple approach. Bravo on the board, though, for Ozone. Needles will knock off your Ash main of aggro, and that just makes things even worse. Lycus not even given the chance for a first blood, something they've been really solid about, but not been good enough to guarantee a round result win. Maybe with finally something changing, the round result ending will change as well, but it'll need to happen for the next 3 rounds in a row to catch up, and Candle has quick work to make of 1, with a nice nade tossed over to Scoop.
If you have that one player on site all the way back in bar, but you don't have that fabled player inside of supply, but as Fokal's able to find the kill while avoiding a lot of damage, you lose any vertical presence from Lycus, and this is your only option at this point. Go inside of the site. Hope that Decimate don't have the skills to pay the bills when we know they do. Scoob isn't going to get any more than 12 if this is going to be the final round, which I think it is, but he still did more than enough to secure his team, put them over the line, and give Decimate Chalet with an asterisk. There's still a chance Ozo does win this. We're going to pretend as if Decimate did. And I think that as we go into Theme Park, Decimate's map pick, they will feel so good, and their chances of making it into the SFCL playoffs are getting even higher by the second.
Someone's going to have to give Lycus a bit of a call in between map 1 and map 2, so they actually decide to show up here for the second map. We joked around throughout the, I guess, majority of the time for the BO3 session here for this season for SFCL. The Collegiate Special has been rearing its ugly head, taking your opposition's pick. I've not seen that fail once. And yet, here we are. Decimate take their opposition's map pick and can now look to do the same exact thing on the second, but finding their own. I really hope the Collegiate Special does not come true. It just doesn't seem like Lycus are in this game. It does not seem like Lycus want to move on. They do not want to pass forward in the SFCL. They're going to pass out and opt to eliminate themselves because they're shooting themselves in the goddamn foot. They look horrendous. A failed strat after failed strat. Yes, they're getting kills. I always like to highlight a team that kills together, can win together, and they're killing fairly well. They're getting kills together. You highlighted bottom frag was 5, top frag was 7. But Decimate had 2 players above double digits. Decimate had 1 player that had 5 more kills than your top frag. It's a different game. They're playing a completely different game. They're on R6 too. You're on R5. Like, you are a couple additions behind. It's just not been a good look for you.
And I hate we're like dogging on Lycus. Like, they are just getting,
they're kicking themselves in the rear. Why can't we join in, right?
I mean, I know, but it's just like Lycus at one point, they made any LCQ phase 2. They, surprisingly enough, I did not expect them to get there, but they did. And I think the fact that they were even there in the first place just shows the potential of this team, what they can do. And yet, ever since then, in SFCL, they've just been on that downward slope. And maybe there is still a chance that they find their way out of this. They are not out of SFCL. It's all going to come down to map 2. Theme Park. If they can dig themselves out of the massive trench they are in, it's going to take a lot of work, but it's going to be right after this break. We'll see you then.
bring your shovels because Lycus Empire got buried on map 1. Can they be unearthed and brought anew? Thematic timing there included. Or are they unfortunately going to stay buried and not really repent for the mistakes they made on map 1 and not make up and, you know, reconciliate whatsoever? It was just a terrible performance in map 1. You can see it here on your board. 7-3, ending on Chalet, my favorite map. And not only did Lycus pick it, meaning I was rooting for them, caster bias included on top of that, but they got whomped. 2 players above a 1.4. Scoop at a 1.6 rating, ending 12-5. Yes, the entry game for Lycus was really good on their attacking half, but they still couldn't close and secure for wins, and it ultimately cost them the whole map as a whole.
I think one of the things is that Lycus played very average, and that is emblematic over their KD, over their entry, over their KOST. The fact that they are just really average, but Decimate was just all over that. They were good, and a lot of times good is usually better than average. So you had Scoop who went above and beyond, and that was just enough to put Lycus into the ground. So I think we've done a lot of donging on this team. Decimate, they have earned their spot on map 1. Maybe we should lay off of Lycus a little bit. We could continue if that happens on map 2, but for now I think we can focus a little bit more on theme park, maybe talk about the positives, the potential as we go into map 2. Lycus, they start on the defense. I think that is a good way to maybe secure some rounds if they can hold down Armory, deposit players on that second floor, keep a player or 2 inside of the site, because I think if you let that site go uncontrolled early on in the round, Decimate will be the team to maybe go for a sneaky little rush that we see every now and then when a defense loses control. And I think we are in the ballpark of which Lycus maybe will start to lose focus, and we can see them just get rushed on.
Let's hope their coach has kicked him in the flank, so to say, because they got kicked around a lot on that last map. Let their coach finally get a kick in themselves and have them put into high gear. You know, I don't want to dog on Lycus, but they're, you know, it's finally nice to see someone play just like me. Totally blasé, straight up average. No, not the biggest dog in the fight, so to say. Meanwhile, Decimate have been pit bulls through and through. What a showcase from them. Let's not dog on Lycus. Let's highlight what Decimate has done. They were the underdogs through and through. They were the team expected to be ousted pretty much immediately in a 2-0 fashion. Them already singing, being allowed for us to sing praise to them after that map 1 performance is a much better position than anyone here would have given them. A operator ban phase coming through. We actually get to see it this time around. The Dokkaebi was taken off first, followed by that Nook. Decimate taking the Nook off the board. The first defensive ban I would maybe expect to be following along for that Valkyrie like we saw previously. Maybe the Azami, which was banned heavily in a lot of Mystics game previously for their elimination matches that they had. But it will be the Solus like Lycus had done on that first map.
And well, not too surprising, especially on theme park when there is a lot of vertical play that you can do. You can go underneath, maybe see out the diffuser, and drones are pretty important for shutting off big areas of the entire map. So you make sure that that is not the play as we head into that first round. I think it's the exact same bans as it was previously. I think there might have been a Valkyrie ban in there, and then there definitely was a Valkyrie ban instead of the Azami. So we're seeing her get played instead as we head over to Bunk Daycare instead of that very crucial site of Armory. Clearly, Lycus, either they feel more comfortable on this site or they want to get maybe ahead of Decimate early on, because usually, in my opinion, you're never going to go wrong starting on Armor. Everybody knows you can go there first, and if you're not there, they can just swap off. But it is just such a good site to start off with, because usually, if you play it decently well, it's a win. You hold up top, you make sure that wall, if it gets opened very, very late into the round, and then the attack really can't do much besides run in, get mowed down, as long as you play it decently. I think Lycus, maybe that's the worry, that they can't do that. But like I said, maybe we'll lay off for now.
Will we? I don't know. You haven't given me my chance to rebuttal back.
Yes, please
can
play
jump
devil's
away.
advocate, Scott.
We can jump away from just calling Lycus a poor performance. Let's highlight what specifically made it a poor performance and maybe relay that towards this map. Lycus tended to struggle with positioning in the later stages of the rounds. I highlighted effectively that Decimate was really good about the windows and repels and having cutoff angles. Lycus would fall directly into their lines of sights and essentially fall into the loving hands of what Decimate were building. They played the long game. That was Decimate's foreplay. And the problem was that Lycus fell for it every single time. They've got to change that up. Whether that means that defensively they play a lot more aggressive right off the bat like they've done here, and they did a couple times on that last map. In the 3 rounds they did win on their defending side. They were net those first bloods and would typically give them control, but the rest of it still needs to go forth. They need to continue with the composure in the later stages of these rounds. The beginning is just that. It's not the ending. The foregone conclusion is not there. They've gotten a ton of damage onto Needles, though, and with Neo already off the board, that means only 2 nades left for that Decimate side, and they're in Scoop's pocket waiting to be used, and they're still currently trying to clear away some barricades to entry in towards the building.
Yeah, and they're gonna have to get some good usage shoot depending on where these defenders are playing. Usually you have to destroy that shield that is over by Cafe because pushing there is a difficult ask to do, but as the shield, it's placed other ways, and honestly, you might not even really need it at that point. With Candle finding one, there's 2 back there for Decimate. I'm worried we're falling into it. Again, Candle does find 1, making it the refrag game always in play. With Lycus, that having that 1-round advantage, maybe this frag flying through could do something, but it's just a little bit off the mark to the right of Candle, meaning that if this window is jumped in by Scoop, it will be a death march, but instead of dying, he deals almost lethal damage to Candle, making him just a little bit more apprehensive at taking this gunfight, and I say that, and Candle repeats the exact same window, giving Decimate the option to push forward, allowing Arcade to be taken, Scott.
Unfortunately, a Nitro Cell tossed below actual Arcade window. Aggro decimates Scoop's feet with it. Was there maybe having the chance of a 1v2 to close and secure can isolate one that is aggro, but takes too much damage in the process, effectively losing the 1v1, but both players barely able to maintain onto the few remnants of HP they have. Aggro will still hide down below on Yellow Staircase, more towards Corridor. They'll finally start to swing slowly but surely up. Twizzler will rotate through Daycare. Yes, has vision on the spike on the actual bomb chassis, and does manage to cut down Cryptics. It's 1v1. Diffuser collected. Chance of a lifetime here for Aggro to maybe close things out for Lycus, or Twizzler to step up big. Twizzler will have to swing through Arcade. Does not get anywhere near in time, and a perfect play by Lycus, a perfect play to bait, and a perfect play to bide your time, because that's the most important thing that unfortunately Decimate just fell victim against.
Look, I'm not saying that Lycus are that. All I'm saying, and if Valkyrie was packing a little bit more heat from behind, that's a Decimate round through and through. Inches from losing that 1v2, not a situation they should have been in. Because you had one barely alive attacker versus one full health defender, and yet you still lose it out. It's something that Lycus, as they go into Armory, yes, they have the round win behind them. And I think you have the roamers, you have them do something, get that entry, and then maybe back off. I just don't take the angles that there could be a player in. I'm looking at you, Candle. There was no reason to peek the sledge on the window again. Because I think that is one prime example of you talking about the late game that Lycus always falls for. It almost happened again. It was avoided in the first round of Theme Park, but we've got a lot more rounds to go.
Decimate will now begin their methodical approach in towards the actual map itself. Look at what we're seeing Lycus do. Slight extension over towards Break to maybe set it up so that there is an angle to deny Decimate should they take that approach. We do highlight that they were putting a lot of presence over towards those windows. It doesn't feel like they did anything after that point, which kind of slowed things down. Looks like we're seeing Decimate take the very standardized approach of actually moving in towards that cash room door frame and taking control of a cache first and foremost. Lycus do have a somewhat stingent presence over in that direction. it will force a lot of the util that is out for the Lycus side away, such as the pests they were previously worrying about, maybe the mute jammers on top of that. Lycus have a lot on the board, but a lot of this could get caught off guard by a very shocking play to be brought forward by Needles, who looks like they were about ready to Garu hook in through bathroom, but I think Focal gets the call out that there is in fact a player there, and it would not lead to a high level of success if you would just get killed in the process, and that's exactly what happens. Needles tries to go in, they will fall, but not until Neo does first, and Focal will join the rest of the team in the afterlife, leaving just Scoob and Twizzler, who unfortunately have to pick up the rest of the dirty work the team has left to them.
All right, so I think the amount of damage that the early game did should be insurmountable for the defense to really flounder away. With Scoob over in maintenance, there's no reason to peek this player. You have to force him inside of the site. The defense knows that this player is here. You have the angles. Do not peek the player. I'm begging you, do not peek this player. Use the time, use the site that you have, and force Scoob to come to you. This is the exact option that you want. A flawless round that Lycus actually did deserve. They were patient, they didn't take the bait, and for the first time, I think it's a round when they can be proud of, the audience can be proud of, and they can look for, as they go forward, as they go into their third site, looking to go for a little bit of a cycle here with initiation and office, avoiding drug and lab. They are on the precipice of reaching a breakthrough, but they just cannot let Decimate gain any ground back.
Lycus finally showing everybody they have what it takes to continue to compete here in the SFCL. They started off strong, a first round win, something that Decimate was able to take on map 1 of Chalet, out from underneath Lycus. And I think that was kind of one of the mental downers that can really upset a team. But Lycus now taking 2 in a row. Remember that once Lycus took 3 on their penultimate comeback that they tried to bring forward and ultimately failed, the only 3 they gained, Decimate took a timeout, thought things through, and then from there had a flawless rest of the game. Not in terms of every round, as Lycus is the only one now to record a flawless so far in this series, but in terms of not giving a single one up to Lycus, which has been a huge game changer. Decimate, though, on the attack for a map like this, you'd expect it to go a lot better. Mystic, in their matchup previously on Theme Park, both times we've seen it, it was a pure attacker-favorited map. One round was won defensively for both teams until a big upset came in the final where somehow, someway, it went the other direction. Is that going to happen here? No. Lycus have already taken 2 defensively, and Lycus don't look like they're preen to give up yet another. They will have to change their objective choice after having taken just the last 2. But they already have gotten 2 solid ones out of the way, and having no longer to deal with that thrown side, they can slide extend there without having to actively defend, which may just be exactly what Lycus want to do on their holds, because playing passively, like you said, gave them a lot. Let them go flawless. Let them find their passion. And now Decimate have to play against it. They're bringing out Monty possibly over with Scoob in through Hatch. And I don't know, maybe a chance to go direct over towards... I don't know. Hey, I'm at a loss.
I think you put Neo on the Monty, honestly. Neo has died within the first minute of each round. And that could be a part of the reason why Lycus has gotten those 2 rounds. You take some frags off the board very early on. You make it so that this big player doesn't have a presence. And it could happen again. Neo isn't the first frag. He is going to find a kill. It's actually Needles. So aggro going down is really only a reprieve instead of an advantage for Decimate. But Neo's still alive. He's over by Dragon Stairs. And he could provide a great pinch, especially with Scoob, who hasn't actually entered control, as it is being fully watched by the defense, and you have to expect that drop to come in sooner than later, but Decimate aren't really comfortable with that just yet. I think maybe one more frag, maybe destroying a couple of utility would be the play, as they still have the time to do it, but only 1 drone left in the pocket. Scott.
Still plenty of time. 64 seconds on the clock. Neo looking to move in towards control. Scoob has already gained control over towards initiation, having just exited the doorway from control itself. Neo will have to toss a nade out to zone away. The information that Scoob has been giving has been very important for that attempt. Neo will have to step through the second to last now. Last Toxic Babe sent their way. Neo down to a very limited amount of HP. Scoob not being allowed to escape. Neo trapped inside control. Twizzler not far behind. It seems like Decimate's attack has seemingly hit a stopping point. There goes the head of one. Neo stuck in a 1v3, having now just made it to an easier stance, taking down Brios, but over half the team still remains. Close player of the Valkyrie, Ozone nearby, a prone play from Cryptix, and that'll be all she wrote. A Mossberg shot at that range is clearly enough to remove the last few stringent amounts of HP remaining, and that will be the timeout much needed for Decimate now called.
All right, I'm going to make a off-game comparison. Have you ever played Apex Legends, Scott?
Unfortunately, I have.
All right, so on the map Kings Canyon, there is an area called Bunker. And if you play a character called Caustic, that is your home. And Cryptix did a little cosplay of Caustic. He forced Monty into the corner. Neo joined him, and he just put them in the experiment. He mashed them between the two smokes and forced Neo, who was like, I don't really want to go into the smoke because obviously that's damage, but I don't want to drop because there's only a pivotal amount of time on the clock left, and that would be a lot of time wasted. But then the second smoke deployed, and it was chef's kiss beautiful from Cryptix. Perfectly countered the Monty, perfectly countered that push from Decimate, which already was on a very thin strand. But already, Lycus are doing a much better job at just playing a little bit more passive, using their utility and not just going for frags, which they can be a team that just goes for frags, and that can work out, but this isn't a game where you can do that. And the sooner they realize it, which it seems they have, I think that's when wins will come to them. So they're already halfway there. They can get 3 more as they go back over to the dorms. They keep playing like this. All that waits around the corner is victory. But Decimate, they did have 60 seconds to think about it, do what they want to as we go into this second site for the second time. And maybe, just maybe, things will turn around for them.
You threw flashback memories at me from when I did used to play, like the release of Apex Legends.
It is a callback, because it is an old Apex memory.
Yes, that is a big callback. I will point out, Decimate weren't put in between a rock and a hard place. They did it to themselves. They pushed all into control. They had to watch their own flank. They didn't have the options, the variables of success. If you're going to bring a Monty, the Monty is there to distract sightlines. The Monty is there to force players to sightline and veneer onto just them. Decimate needed to send players through arcade stairs, they needed to send players through arcade hall, and they needed them to start to apply pressure from the flank in through door to maybe take Cryptix, who was lying on the ground prone the whole time with that Mossberg, or maybe just try to get an outward angle in from break room, from, breaching in through that windows like previously. Just something there that changes the game, something that changes angles at which Lycus will have to defend. Meaning not everyone can just lock their eyes in on this one player and close them out and secure the only angle that's available for Decimate to push from. They didn't change things up, and because of that, they're forced to bite the bullet, or maybe more literally in this sense, choke on some hard gas, because that's truly what it is, even though we don't know what's in the canister. Lycus defending, though, doesn't seem like they'll change things up too much. We'll head over to a new objective, and Decimate will change things up quite a bit. Twitch drone out for the information as well as utility destruction. They're going to have to be quite aware that a nitro cell can be tossed from below, as that did take them down last time we saw that approach through that arcade window. But before that, they've got to take down Aggro, who is being pretty aggressive, name aptly fitting, already behind that arcade machine, but it is still first blood over to Decimate.
It's the first entry death for Lycus. They've been very good on this, but it makes it so it doesn't sting as much, and you trade out the hard breach for Candle, who usually you might see go down early, and that's a win you will always want. Hard breach for your entry. And now with the time starting to tick down, you have no way to go through office. You have no way to really find any good angles over by Cafe. I think Decimate, they're going for desperation. at this point. You can still see a lot of players outside the building. I don't think anybody's actually entered. You will have that happen with Neo, but 50 seconds on the clock. Candela's being thrown in, and with a Warden in play, Decimate, they've got a lot of not very good options ahead of them, and Focal's gonna blind his teammates, and it is just a machine for Lycus at this point. Decimate have no option but to walk straight into the line of sight of all these defenders, and now just one player remains between Lycus and their undefeated 4K streak.
What is Decimate to do? The timeout didn't work. They've effectively found nothing that's warranted them a slight edge above the competition. They're trapped, Neo specifically, inside of Cafe, forced to move out to Terrace, maybe move over towards that arcade window, but that's an even slimmer angle of attack for Lycus to fire through. You go from a whole door frame, a double door frame to go from, to a tight window you're forced to vault through, which closes you in even more. It's just poor choice after poor choice for Decimate. It feels like these players have decided to parsec into each other's machines and play for the other side, because the Lycus from last map is nowhere to be seen, and the Decimate that dominated last map has gone missing. Someone put out an Amber Alert. Decimate have lost the plot. They're now 4-0 down.
Collegiate special, baby. Collegiate.
Yeah. They're playing like collegiate players. And I mean that as derogatorily as you can possibly imagine.
It's a slur.
Decimate are playing horror. A lot like Lycus did, but I dare say even worse. And yes, we're only 5 rounds into this game. Only 4 have concluded. But Decimate have given us no look as to how they will change this up. The timeout did nothing. And from the looks of things, they aren't even changing things much past that point of the last round. They've switched off the Twitch. Yes, they've gone over to the Ace. They had the Sledge, though, last time they pushed this. They didn't even get the chance to use the nades from Neo on that Iana because they got picked off initially. They just think in their heads, Lycus only won that round because they got 2 kills right off the bat. If we don't let them get that, it'll work out fine. That's not enough. Change everything that you can. Put things back in your control. You can't pray that Lycus are going to sit back on their haunches, because they won't.
Yeah, Lycus didn't change much on their attack, and Decimate, they've got 2 more chances to change something. And I don't know, the operator lineup isn't seeming like they're going to change, but it does go deeper than just operator lineups. A lot of times it is about just how they initiate, what they do in the mid-round, because they were doing very well in the late round of the previous rounds, but they're doing so poor in the mid-round of this map that there's no way they can find themselves out, even if they do play the late round very well, because a lot of times you get to 30 seconds left and it's a 5v2 or it's a 4v1 with Lycus. They can play as silly as they want because they know that they will most likely have the round, and Twister just walks on in. It's immediately refragged, but Decimate, they go for a long shot option as all of them do not commit to the site, though they walk away with the W here, Scott.
Well, they've got a man advantage, something that they have not had for quite a while. Focal and Needles finding 2 picks to initially go from a nice 3v4 to now a 3v2, making things a lot more manageable for themselves. The issue is, Lycus have changed their game plan. They're a lot more of a later stage, later round team. But the issue is they're not on site. They do have great varying angles. That means a crossfire could be put in play, but it also means they have to win the initial ones. Both players need to do so, and it's just not the best option. Candle loses the fight, as expected. 2 players are varying down upon them. Aggro all by themselves takes a huge nade to the legs, and will now put them down to dire straits with little to no HP, shots sent from both directions, and this round will effectively be won by Decimate, bar a miracle occurring. Aggro does get 1 kill, a pretty nice shot towards Neo, but it has to swing in towards Armory instead. Does have an angle towards 1, can't connect fast enough, needs to find these 2 kills as soon as humanly possible, and it will be denied emphatically with Needles taking off their head, trying to swing in from that double split. It just wasn't going to work. Great return by Decimate, who finally show up here on this series. I won't say series. This map. They won map 1.
Yeah. I was very worried that they were half committing to the rush, which would have made their problem so much worse. That with some players outside of the site, you had Twizzler try to go for the commitment. He walked in. It seemed like he didn't have a lot of friends, but he did. And we saw Focal get inside the site, and It was very well played by Decimate. They haven't been doing a lot in the early game of the rounds, and it seems like that has just been the storyline for the entire series so far, is how do these teams adapt from that first phase of the round to the second phase to the third phase. Every single round just comes down to how all of that interacts with these two teams, and in that one, Decimate, they went for a little bit of a bold move because rushes always sometimes do come with an inherent risk. But I said early in the pre-show that Lycus maybe will lack focus when they go into Armory or in some of these sites. And just at the time, even though they are winning, Scott, Decimate struck at the perfect opportunity. They got one round, so a 7-0 is not on the cards, but a 5-1 still is. And Lycus are not going to let mistakes repeat themselves. Despite the fact that Cryptix is alone inside of the site, you can be sure that they have a lot more eyes on their entrances this time.
Decimate have done a much better job of getting into the objective safely. That was the biggest problem for them. Lycus were finding early picks, maybe not always the first blood, unlike in round 1, but they're always finding influential frags back. And on top of that, they're refragging after that first kill. Decimate are forced to peek 1v1s. Theme Park is a map that has a lot of tighter corners, a lot of tougher corridors in general, and that means that you need to start changing the angles and really flipping the head on the board. Decimate do that. Drop through control room hatch quick enough that seemingly Candle has their headphones on backward, still veering in through that dragon corridor window. It's a free kill, and Decimate will take that 9 times out of 10, which now opens up Maintenance and Dragon more specifically to be perused by the rest of their attack. They'll take down Maintenance Wall with the exothermic charge that gives them a large majority of control from behind of Throne, and Scoop can start to use that alongside their flashes in the pocket and the drones from the team that is still alive, something Decimate have tended to struggle with, to gather tons of intel of positions so they can avoid sightlines and find frags back just like that. Scoob with a DBNO onto one more. It's Cryptix. That is a guaranteed kill up to this point, as they're now trapped on Armory, and the only 2 players remaining, aka Aggro and Ozone, are going to have to give up too much control to go for that pickup. They do aggress for 1. Cryptix will be brought back, but in the process, they'll give up Ozone because they let them be isolated, and it doesn't matter anyways. A flawless round for Decimate, a gorgeous return back into it, and they're back in this game.
Remember what I told Lycus not to do on round 2?
I don't think they listened.
The first time we went to Armory, I was beaming into their headphones. No peeking. Bad. Slap their hands. Bad. No. Bad dog. They peeked. They did it. They did not use the site, the map. I know they were down a player. That Candle wasn't there. But you need to force Scoob to be uncomfortable, as his only option at that point is to walk in the site. And instead of forcing that, you allow him to be like, hell yeah, let's walk into the site because I just got a kill onto a player inside a Throne, and I know there's not going to be a second player over there, and I know the site is clear because I just got the kills onto the player inside of the site. And Lycus, we gassed you up in the first 4 rounds, and after kind of treating you like day-old garbage in that first match. And I'm very worried that it's going to revert back to that state. Even though the sides have swapped, the attack can be a dangerous thing for this team. It's what they struggled with Decimate. I mean, they didn't win a single attack, Scott, on Chalet. And I want to remind you, it was 3-3. Lycus did not have the advantage like they did. 1 round difference between these 2 maps, it's not enough for me to really have confidence in Lycus's attacks.
There shouldn't be any incompetence in Lycus's attacks. Lycus moved in last map and proceeded to take a Chalet that's pretty much been universally considered attacker favored for a long period of time, and thrown all of that out the window and said, yeah, we know what we could be, but imagine if we did the opposite. It's not all fun and games, and in fact, there was no fun to be had, just pure game. Down to business, Decimate were better defensively. Now they have to play a map that they picked, so you'd argue there's something there. But they also had picked to attack first. They had picked to determine that there was something there for them against Lycus' defense, and it just wasn't there. They end 4-2, which I believe is the minimum you need to put forward a substantial half. So the chances is still there for Decimate. The game's not over just yet, but they have a lot on the board. And right now, I think Lycus have built something up fairly nice. I like the pick of the Jackal. Aggro picking this for the Inox scanner means that the extension that Decimate are truly bringing, as we can see a play over towards that Dragon Corridor, is a lot more difficult to actually brew up and work. And you did see the chance be gained for Decimate to find a pick off early. They lose that fight. Needles goes down, but not before dropping Cryptics to 2 HP. And Candle takes a huge lick of damage from Neo, who barely gets out of there alive. And Candle's about the same, but sitting worse for HP at about 40.
They got that entry. That you can give them one thing for this entire map. They are very positively up on the entry, but they haven't gotten the wall open. And if there's one thing you have to know about this armory site is that if you do not get the wall open, you might as well call the round a lost cause. Because as long as there's about 2 defenders left, they can watch those entrances and just mow you down from really wherever they please. But Scoob falling, Lycus can start to focus their efforts, and maybe even if they don't get the walls open, they could just try bum rushing Decimate at this point. Vogel's still alive, so he could shut down any plant attempts that are there with the Supernova and that Yokai Blast. And now, as the timer really is getting to those dire hours, it is truly time for Lycus to commit as that wall is getting open, and they're really starting to find their groove here, Scott.
Shots to connect. Lycus have easily dealt with Decimate's defense here on this objective. 4 players to the 1. What do you expect to happen? A total slaughter as the last remaining player is forced to funnel in with nowhere left to go. Decimate, their name fitting. You gotta look at the gameplay truly. It has just been Lycus coming out of the woodwork, showing that they are not the same team they had previously. Their attack looked clean, but Throne Room has also been fairly one-sided. Decimate's only 2 wins were on that objective, and they took it well. Lycus now gets to throw it back in their face, but there is still room for recovery. It's only the first round of that second half. You can't say too much against it, but Decimate picking it again just pisses me off. I hate seeing the objective twice. It brings a level of complacency I just don't think belongs here in the SFCL or R6 in general. And after you just got whopped on the last round, you think Throne Room's going to work again. Lycus, they really don't even have to change anything. They know what they can do to work. Decimate, they just don't have a dog in the fight for this one.
And especially because it seems like they're dedicating a lot more to the roam, which was not good for them. Lycus tore them apart off the site. They brought the Jackal last time, but Aggro's actually going on the IQ instead, which I think is supposed to be a counter towards the Echo. But I think the Jackal did work. I still think Aggro can do things because overall, I mean, they were still able to shut them down. I think the drones really did a lot for them, and I think the drones will continue to do things for them, even with Vigil on play, which is also designed to counter those drones. And as Lycus, they go in, I mean, they take down Decimate from 7-2, potentially on Theme Park. I mean, we should just shut up at that point, right?
Do you think there's an avenue of success to return? Do you think there truly is a Decimate dog in this fight?
I think there's a chance, but I do want to feel good for Lycus. We have been really harsh on them, and Twitch chat will call casters bias. But Lycus did not look good in the first map, and they've definitely changed, especially getting their first attacking round on Theme Park. I mean, that's pretty big. They weren't able to get a single round. But as they focus on the actual floor itself, trying to maybe spot some yokai drones with the IQ, Scoob takes out Ozone. And that means that the roam is just going to be a bigger thorn in Lycus' side as they have to focus their efforts over it. We're almost halfway through the round, and maybe that lack of a Jackal will come to bite them.
Well, with both frags now equaling things out, 90 seconds still ticking away on the clock to work through, Lycus have been a lot slower than they have been previously, and on top of that, been a lot more unsuccessful than they were, as Twizzler finds a nice pick to net themselves a man advantage. Do you see that there is a ping coming out here for the Decimate defense onto a remaining player for Lycus? Drop in, though, towards control room, and maybe you have to worry about that player still perusing over towards that cash room window as well. Oh, sorry, door, as well as that window towards Harl. It seems like Lycus are trying to work through this checklist, but Decimate are avoiding the direct confrontation. Sitting in bathroom towards cash, you have to reach it away. Great rotate is available in through vault, but did they get out in time? And I don't think that's the case. They'll have to play for the one-on-one confrontation to isolate one. It works perfectly. Neo swings around a corner to cash to get rid of one and trades their life in the process after a return is through. But that is the perfect play that you need in that scenario. You know you're playing to die. Take that kill and move that forward. The 30 seconds left. And just now, Lycus are moving upwards to that top floor to use the nades from above that they're quickly running out of.
And they don't have a way to counter those yokais. They do get the wall open, so that is the big thing. You find a way into the actual site itself, but Marius is just going to enter. He is going to be in that 1v3. Diffuser is dropped. He's able to find one, but Scoob is there, and he had himself a hell of a round. I think 4K. We don't have that little graphic on the actual screen itself to see, but you could tell he was hopping up and around hyper, trying to get Decimate back in this, keep Lycus away from map point, and now they go over to lab. Yeah, his little dancey dance, Scott. But lab storage is going to be headed to not dorms, which is interesting. Lycus tended to avoid that site entirely. In fact, they preferred to go to dorms. The difference in the defenses is unique. And so far, it's worked out for Lycus more than Decimate. It's been one and one for them so far, but they are the ones who really have the pressure here. So every decision that they make, macro or micro, there's going to be a lot more eyes on them in this map. And if they lose this, they go down 6-3. Put Lycus on map point. And at that point, I mean, any other of those other sets, you would have to go to dorm, right?
I honestly think Labs is one of the better objectives for Decimate to play with right now. Lycus play a very slow game in that last round to move forward. They try to move in from cash. They took control in Dragon, and they tried to use that as a pivot point to work in to pressure Decimate on the objective. Decimate did a wonderful job, though, Neo more specifically, inside bathroom on that second floor towards cash to close out for a good pick and to just be a huge time sink for that Lycus side. I think if Decimate repeat that and have that extension and can escape that extension successfully like they did previously, or at least play for the, one and done frag back in return, Lycus will have even more groundwork they have to recover from. Yes, there is a direct window into lab, or sorry, into the game room. There, you have to worry about that. Storage is an issue. But the benefits you gain, because you know that Lycus are going to pressure in on that throne room side first and foremost, is too much of a boon. Decimate have a lot of control they can work off of, especially with this slight extension they're going to be working with.
Is there anybody playing in the actual throne room itself? I mean, I don't really spot any player over there, which is surprising. So Twizzler is very far back in the actual site, in the actual throne room itself, but you do need somebody over there because it is a pivotal part of that drug lab site. Overall, it seems like they're dedicating themselves a lot more to that second floor roam with somebody like Focal, Neo, Scoob, trying to waste a lot of time, but so far the attack hasn't really made too many dents. I think now they will actually start to get something. Bryos does spot a body as he swaps back from his skeleton key shotgun. It's dealt a lot of damage, doesn't deal any in the process, but the pinch is there. Candle finds once. It's immediately refragged onto Ozone, so their happiness can't last too long, but it's gained right back with Neo going down.
Shot still springing true. Lycus gaining the man advantage off the back of it. With 60 seconds remaining. Decimate still have a good foothold towards the objective. Needle's watching the upper arcade balcony. That hallway locked down and not really allowing for them to rotate through arcade stairs. They will be forced to drop over towards barrels, which is a bit of a concern. As well as the fact that they still have one more player with a pretty far extension as well, more towards blue. I'd just be very wary of what Decimate are trying to bring forward. Brios making a lot of noise with the skeleton key. Needles, if they were still there, maybe would have had a wonderful angle to work off of. Maybe hearing a drone or something forced them to take the couple steps away. Aggro on the outside, working it from Sweet Shop window, and wow, Needles and Twizzler in one fell swoop get caught off. And it leaves just Focal in the 1v4. Sees one, and it'll be done. Aggro finding the kill, Lycus finding the round, and now they've reached the precipice of success to force a third. It's getting ever closer and closer here, V.
I'm trying to consider what could be more transferable to a map like Clubhouse, Chalet, or Theme Park. I think Chalet with that kind of 3 levels, that would be transferable towards Clubhouse, but you also have what could be considered dual sides. Like with Theme Park, it's a little bit like Ville, how you can chop the map in half just a little bit and just play sides. Like for example, this yellow hallway can split the map in half with that drug and dorm side, and on the other side you've got armory and initiation, and that isn't exactly the same as Clubhouse, which mainly just does have gym on one side, and then everything else is mostly centered around that CC bar basement side. So, but here's the thing about it, Scott. Maps can be transferable, but momentum is always a thing you have to keep in mind. Lycus didn't feel good in map 1, but they come in map 2, they get that confidence, and then they can go into map 3 off of that high, gain a big advantage early on in the mental game, and I think that that is the bigger key in play.
Well, also remember that momentum should have been here for Decimate. Why wasn't it? Where'd that go? Decimate were on what, a 5-round spree?
Yeah, but that was on
6?
one map. Like transferring that between maps is a difficult thing to do.
Would it also, I don't know. It's hard to tell. Decimate have already used their timeout, so to me, it's hard to see that they still have a dog in this fight, so to say, V. But at the same time, Lycus are a team that once they start to struggle, they tend to stick in the mud. They tend to stay there. And no matter how much it kind of sucks to see the collegiate special happen and that these players are falling into this collegiate mindset of giving up their map pick and playing poorly when they have the talent and the skills to not do such a thing. I think that's what we're going to see. I think Lycus have effectively given themselves enough of a buffer. Even if they were to lose 1 or 2, they just need 1 round here in the next 3 to guarantee control over here on Theme Park, and I think this round could already be the way to do so. No picks have been gained, so there at least is some leeway for Decimate to work from. But look at the drone control that Lycus have already gained, trying to give maybe some information over to Aggro, who is trying to play in from that Dragon Stairwell. They'll clear default cam, and they have a great foothold in towards Throne Room, where Decimate have had an extension in blue the last 2 rounds.
There isn't an early peek from any of these players. Candle still makes his way through that cash side like he did in the previous round. With a couple players to his left. There is a player actually in initiation, and Candle is going to find one, making that Bryos 5th sting just a little bit less. A good play by Scoob to actually take that opportunity. See that the player is chucking all their flashes and find that kill, and actually back off into initiation and regain that position that he previously had. Ozone finds Neo, and Scoob might have to peek his head sooner than later because Twizzler is down. Scoob does hop in, but he can't get a single lick onto Lycus, so 7-3 on Chalet. Decimate win 7-3 on Theme Park. Lycus win. It is a scale tipping both ways, Scott, and we go to a map.
Talking about the winners and the losers, the only winners here are us in the broadcast booth and the viewers at home watching. We get to see another map of this oh so glorious gameplay complete. Will the third map be another 7-3? I sure hope not. The first and the second going 7-3. I'd hope it's a pretty darn close game. 2 sides of a coin. I hope this game is a 7-5 or an OT engagement, or I hope it's a total 7-1, 7-0 victory. Nothing in between. If there is a single scoreline in between, I am ending the night disappointed. If it's either one of those, though, I think it'd be pretty funny.
7-1 on map 3 after we've already seen both of these teams in their prime, or at least in this series. I don't think there's any way that you would have that. I know that Lycus, I think looking at them at theme park, they seem to have gotten their mojo back. They're like Austin Powers at the end of the second movie. He's gotten his mojo back. He's ready to take down Dr. Evil, who in this case is Decimate. And we all know Austin Powers always wins. That's the whole like shtick of Austin Powers, is that no matter what situation he is in, he will always win. And I'm trying to think, going into map 3, do I have Lycus as my boys? Do I have Decimate? I just can't seem to pick one.
Decimate's performance in map 1 was great, but they just didn't have as solid a performance in map 2. I still think they performed. I think they performed better than Lycus performed on map 1. But Lycus was a different team, a whole new breed of player in that second map. And if they do manage to somehow keep that momentum like we were highlighting quite a bit in the last 2 rounds, I think it's going to fall to Lycus. But we'll have to see. We're going to get a quick break to really make sure these players get iced, make sure they can't hold that momentum. We'll be back after this. You got your wish. Map 3 is coming true. I called it. I said anytime I've been on broadcast, the third map is pretty much a guarantee anyways. But now we actually get to see the foregone conclusion come true. And now we get to see the map that you were so excited for before. Woo-hoo. Enough to ruin my afternoon plans. Hopefully it's worth it for you. I didn't have any plans anyways. Don't feel bad.
It is 9:55 at night. It is not afternoon.
It is
Scott.
8:55 at night.
I know
live
where you live.
in a different time zone than you, so I got more time than you. Hey, my dog is currently waiting for me to take her outside. I totally forgot to do it during the break. So make it a quick one. One of these two teams, the 7-0-7-1, like I mentioned. But we'll talk a little bit more about the scoreline from that last game. An almost polar opposite from the one before. Every player on the side of Lycus had a positive 1.0 rating and more. A lot like we saw Decimate have on map 1 for Chalet. And it's the exact opposite side of the coin for Decimate, who didn't have a single player above 1.0.
I think one of the biggest things is you still saw that consistency from Lycus. Lowest is 6 kills, highest is 10, but this time they weren't just average, they were better. They were good. I think in this case they were great. Like, you had, as a team, they were great. I think map 1 Scoob was that player, but overall Decimate still was a good team, but Lycus was great. And if they hold on to that going into map 3, they still keep that team coordination, that team chemistry that they have from map 1, from map 2, and they roll that into map 3, I think they are going to be unstoppable, because that is the big thing for me, is that they still kept what made their team very good, their chemistry, but they just elevated their play. And that's how you know that a team improved from map 1 in map 2, is that they just didn't seem like a different team. They were just better versions of themselves.
Always like to make the joke when a team starts to play poorly that they let their younger brother hop on the keyboard and mouse for a couple rounds, but this time it felt like they just let them take map 1 and all of a sudden became, just like you said, better versions of themselves for almost entirely new players. You still do the same glimpses of success from Lycus, but they played it much better, a lot more coordinated, a lot more refrag-centric, and yeah, they still were the same team that liked to go for this very hasty and quick kills, but they were also a lot more mindful of their own lives, which is something that was totally absent on Chalet from them. They were haphazard, they were greedy, and it cost them pretty much, in fact, it did cost them every round that they attempted to bring forward that pressure. They finally changed things up, and it works. Can it be repeated here in Clubhouse? It's a different style of map for sure than the two we've already seen, but it is also one of the standard maps of the T3 scene. Everyone knows how to play it. Both these teams should be at a fairly even advantage for it.
When one of the things for Decimate is we talked about like how Lycus was able to win that, but the problem with Decimate in map 2 was that in map 1, they were able to make all those entries and all the early game done by Lycus nullified. Honestly, by just what they were able to do with their patience, they were able to make Lycus feel their mistakes. But that didn't happen in map 2. And if that doesn't happen in map 3, if they still get picked off, if Lycus doesn't peak, I think is just the main thing. If Lycus do not get punished for their mistakes, or they don't even make those mistakes in the first place, there is no real opportunity for Decimate to maybe get an advantage. But we do actually need to talk about the bans this time, Scott. Thermite and Habana are taken off the board just like that.
Habana is expected. The Thermites, not so much. Banning double hard breach, now the Azami, this is fairly normal, as well as the Valkyrie. But the attacking one of the Thermite off the board forces Selmas, forces your ace, and forces pocket hard breaches as your go-to, I guess, factors for success, pushing in through that CCTV wall, as well as getting rid of the hatch inside kitchen. It's also going to make dealing with the hatches across this map in general a fairly tedious process. Typically, you break down kitchen hatch, you bust through the floor in Central Hall, and you break down the hatches inside supply as well as the one inside bar. That gives you multiple avenues of approach should things get dire, and it also makes it so that Decimate have to watch multiple angles and constantly be aware of their own flank, or, in this sense, their own heads, as the sightlines will be from above. Lacking that, or at least making things difficult in that regard, could be a huge thorn thrown into this game. Decimate with the exothermic ban is pretty shocking to me, and I'm really excited to see where that leads us.
I mean, you still have those can openers, and you still have Ace. You essentially have to bring somebody with a secondary hard breach in a good amount of these rounds. I think CC may be the only site where you can afford to just bring the Ace, but it also puts a lot of pressure onto that player who has the can openers and your hard breach, because Cryptics or Ozone dies, some of those hatches aren't getting opened. And I say that, and some of the hatches aren't even reinforced in the first place, which I feel kind of maybe destroys the Habana and the Thermite getting taken out, because Habana is mainly used for getting those hatches, which are a pretty big part of the clubhouse basement. But, I mean, Decimate, they banned the Thermite. They broke open those hatches. They knew what the rules are, so clearly they have a playbook here.
I like it. We saw Mystic opt to use it against Red Right Hand. Not the ban of the Thermite, but actually leaving some of those hatches soft. I would say more specifically when it came to Cafe, I believe it was Red Right Hand would actually bust open the roof above them when they were defending Kitchen. If you actively defend already aware that there are sight holes that could take you out at any moment, you're going to avoid those from the beginning. Your strategy will revolve around the denial of that sight line. I think for Decimate, that's one of the plays they're working with. They know the sight line. They're going to always play as if it's open. And because of that, it's going to be a different style of game that Lycus was struggling against with those Windows plays in later stage of the round on the first map of Chalet. That is just going to be kind of one of those confrontations that's different. And I think it's kind of warranted a lot from Decimate. 2 players on the top floor. They're playing a pretty heavy roam. That extension allows them to gain 2 kills onto Lycus, both Ozone and Candle off the board. And that means they have, well, only the Selmas for hard breach to work with, which could be a bit of a concern, all things considered. But Lycus have a foothold towards the basement, ready to breach open the Capcan trap that's placed the EDT to move their way over towards Memo, which they've entirely avoided that hatch and just said straight through main. We're going to go ahead and find kills.
Oh, 2 apiece for Lycus. Cryptics and Bryos get 1. And now Aggro is going to try to put that diffuser down without coverage from the Yana. And Aggro does have to get off the diffuser, but it's just a little bit too slow to get that player running back into the site itself. And now putting the diffuser down is not really an option, because there are still 3 defenders alive all around him, and mostly to the left of him in the other side. But Needles, prone inside of that air conditioner, does actually reveal himself and finishes off the round for Decimate. So every team who has gotten that first round in this series has won the map. Map 1, Decimate got the first round. Map 2, Lycus got that one. So Decimate, does the pattern hold here, Scott?
Yes. What do you want me to answer that? How do you want me to answer that, Via?
There was like no hesitation there. Are you saying you're back in Decimate here?
I really don't want
to. You already said yes. So
yeah, but I really don't want to. Lycus opted to pick Chalet, and even though they had a terrible map of Chalet and it made the map not enjoyable to watch, it's still my favorite map. I got to see it, so there was this standard level of enjoyment from it for me. It could have been a high school match, and I would have enjoyed the series seeing Chalet on the board. But Decimate just, I don't know, something about the underdog story. I like seeing it. The issue is every time there's been an underdog story in every one of the matches I've cast here in the BO3 stages here of SFCL, it's been the top dog that wins it. It would be Lycus in this case. The one expected to go through would win it if the story continues to unfold this way. And since we've already seen the Collegiate Special unfold this way, pretty sure the rest is doomed to follow. We already have a statistical anomaly one way over the other. Why eschew that any further? But Decimate did have a very solid first round. The first 2 bloods going their way was really nice. The issue was Lycus found 2 back, but Lycus had to take a very dangerous approach. They had to very aggressively move in, considering they were lacking the buck, which means they had no skeleton key, which means they had no pocket hard breach, and they had no way to clear the floorboards and central hall, so they couldn't play a standard assault. What they could do, though, was be cheeky, and that's what they've done here in this round as well. Aggro will slam down the hammer to get into Lodge and find a kill because of it. Off screen, Candle finds a nice frag the other way, and though Neo does get the refrag back towards Aggro, it's still a man disadvantage for Decimate, but that's nades off the board. Half of the total nades available for Lycus now left on the floor, no one able to pick him up.
Yeah, and it's not like CS where you're gonna be able to walk over it and suddenly Ace has frag grenades, which you should never give Ace frag grenades. He would not be able to carry them, and he would just essentially blow themselves up. We're talking about lore Ace here. As Needles, he does back all the way down to the basement, the roaming maestro. You don't see it very often, but at this point, Needles has committed to the bit, and he is going to have to run up some of those stairs, whether it is by secret, whether it is up those main stairs, being watched by a drone, being watched by Bryos. One of his cameras has been taken from him and now can be used by the attack, and Focal will communicate that to the rest of his team as he did see that, but I don't think there's any way to destroy this. At this moment, all you could do is go and break the glass, because Needles, he's used all his impacts at this point.
Needles is just moments away, V. A firefight in bathroom. 2 players. No, make it 3. There for Lycus at a moment's notice. And what a shot from Cryptics to deny Needles. Droning ahead gets you a ton of information that can tell you exactly where their head will lie, and it will stay there lying in wait as the rest of the round will go forward. Decimate, having opted for the bar objective, puts them in a pretty rough spot defensively as they are extending away from that first initial floor and moving elsewhere. Castle Barricade is down. They'll use the Oryx Rush to knock it down, slamming against the wall nearby, but there's just too much control from the open walls left from Central Hall. The defense just wasn't there for Decimate, and their name fits to what happened to the team. A really bad showcase from them, but it was a good performance by Lycus to bury early a lot of the competition that was coming on that top floor, which I think a lot of that was brewed up from aggro, just taking that quick drop through Hatch and Logi.
I mean, there is a reason teams don't really like to go to bar stage.
Better than Logi.
It is, but the bar is in hell. Logi was literally directly outside. Like, you could bring a Monty and just easy game over. In that one, you do have to hold the top floor, and it was being held. But Lycus just took away Decimate's opportunity at the horizontal level. They forced Needles down, just took everything away from them very early on. And one thing I said about Decimate was that they were able to nullify a lot of those entries that Lycus was able to get on map 1. Couldn't do that on map 2, and so far, haven't been able to do that. Because on map 1, on round 1, you still had Decimate striking early, keeping stable, and one thing that they've always relied on is that ability to strike when their opponent least expects them. But Lycus is wary of everything, every trick in the book that Decimate has tried, so it's going to take solid strategic siege. But Decimate wasn't able to do on bar stage because it is definitely a little bit harder of a site to actually strategize around, because there isn't a solid strategy to defend it with. But Gym Bedroom, you cannot say the same for that site. It is a done and dusted site to death.
Brios breaches in through Garage. Noting that since Logi is not in play here, it's only a slight extension set up for Decimate towards Cash. But the cheekiest part of it all is the fact that Solus got let through on that ban phase, which means that's information that's there. Now, yes, Brios, the player that is inside Garage, isn't necessarily having the utility that could be spotted by Solus. But the eyes work plenty fine. It's just the hand doesn't match it. Needles gets slapped silly. Humbled by Brios, I'll say. As they should have won that gunfight 9 times out of 10, but instead failed. They'll be forced now to fight at a man disadvantage where it easily should have been a Needles kill and a retreat through basement, which would have easily given them a man advantage and kept that player alive to play for the later stage of the round and deny so much utility that could be there for Decimate. Sorry, for Lycus.
That's just a P90 moment right there.
P
shooter.
It's a fine gun.
It is a high rate of fire, and sometimes rate of fire is what you need. In Scoob's case, the SMG11 has one of the highest in the game, and it takes out aggro, making Needles' unfortunate mistake just that much less impactful. As without those frags, Browse is still here. He doesn't need a set of frag grenades to deal with anything, and Intuition He's a son of a gun. Focal has no opportunity to respond to that gun through the barricade. And just like the rest of Decimate, they seem to start to crumble under the pressure. Scoop does find one, but he's taken almost to lethal damage. He pushes up by the bedroom. There's a player inside of that bathroom and one in the gym, and he can't look both ways at once. And Bryos peeks, takes out the player, and Lycus get that lead that they had all the way back on Theme Park back in their own hands.
A solid performance and an even better result than that after the fact. Lycus, a 2-round comeback against Decimate. Something that, if we're talking about the repeats we saw on map 1 where Decimate took the first round, Lycus were able to do as well. Will the story repeat? Lycus makes it a 3 and Decimate return? I don't know. Can I protest my own team? I don't know.
This is not... They did not run an illegal skin, Scott. You can't just...
I think he's saying it because they're bullying him right now. I think that's what's going on. Which I think is fair. I think if your name is Needles, you may want to get bullied a little bit by your team as well. But...
I mean, it's a Halo weapon. Like, could you say, like, that's why your name is Needles? Because of the Needler? I feel like that's a cool reason to have...
I think it'd be much cooler if you were naming yourself after hedgehogs. What's more badass than Hedgehog be? You're covered in spikes.
Okay, well.
Stand my point. No answer.
I've got no answer to that. I mean, you could be right.
I know I'm right. Let's bring out this basement side here again here, V. We'll stop getting sidetracked away from the plot that's moving forward. Basement side again. Decimate did a wonderful job of finding 2 kills off the bat from the extended players on that second floor. However, Lycus now realized that Decimate can do that. They should have known in the first place, but maybe they just weren't expecting it. They'll start to play a lot smarter like they have been the last 2 rounds. Let's keep in mind that Lycus had almost come back in that round. What was a 5v3 quickly became a 3v3 and was refrag after refrag. It was a solid performance for a return. Decimate just managed to pull something out there in the end. Can Lycus do it again? I think they'll do better. They have been doing better. They've been keeping the momentum from the previous game despite an early round 1 loss as well as the break that was taken in between that we talked about icing players. I think personally that Lycus are in a good enough state of mind they could beat Decimate. Decimate just haven't been feeling like themselves, but it's always nice to get a couple early kills to keep things rolling and get that ball moving. And they may get the chance here with Bryos starting to cruise over towards Secret in through blue. They'll use nades, though, to clear away any of those barbed wires that could be placed. Maybe give them a sort of go-ahead. Something to get the ball rolling in towards that side.
Decimate not sending anybody upstairs. I know that in a lot of these rounds, they have fell early on, and that has been a source of their problems, as Neo barely does survive that frag grenade. But so far... I mean, Decimate, they've got all 5 players, but that's allowed Lycus to focus on reconstructing this side, using their frag grenades, taking out utility, and I don't think that's really going to be beneficial for the defense once we get into that third phase of the execution, because Bryos is a gunner. So far, he is one of the highest fraggers so far in this entire match, and with Neo already on a very hurt amount of HP, if the pinch does come from Lycus, if they all convene down the actual stairs itself, maybe push towards church, continue to bruise a lot of these Decimate players, the defense is not going to be able to really hold on, and their 2 C4s, they won't get a chance to use them.
Suppose there's in a pretty rough straight. The impact nade trick was attempted by Decimate for a moment. They didn't have much to truly do it with. A bit more of a passive approach to denying that, thinking maybe the exothermic charge ban was enough to get the job done, alongside the anticipated Hibana that did go through for Lycus. Critics will drop through that kitchen hatch, though, that was made, and a nitro cell was tossed, but unfortunately doesn't go far enough to get the job done. Frag for frag, trade for trade, 3 versus 3, and only Lycus now able to give themselves the go-ahead. Needle force for the refrag back once again. Needle swinging in towards Arsenal. Plant has gone down. A player lying down next to Kool-Aid Wall. Will they know he's there? Not in time. It's a done, dusted deal. Round is set in stone, and Lycus will continue to bury Decimate every chance they've been given, except for round 1. And I'm expecting a possible timeout to come through for Decimate, as they have always called it after a 3-round return by Lycus.
It does not come.
Not yet. Oh, maybe not.
I know. If you don't call it at the beginning, why would you call it at the end? I don't think Decimate. They've tried the timeout. It hasn't really amounted.
It worked
to
map
much.
1.
It did work map 1.
It
for
gave them a
Lycus.
6-round-in-a-row return.
Yes, but they opted not to. And we're in a different part of the night, Scott. We're not map 1 where Lycus seemed to have all the momentum in the world and there was nothing to really go off for Decimate. We're here. We're Decimate. They lost map 2. So far, they're seeming to not really gain anything from that second map. Transfer it over to this third one because it seems like they're having the same problems. They haven't really been able to get refrags, and instead of trying to play a little differently on the defense, they're just shying away from it all. Or at least that's what they're doing on the basement side. I don't think you can really afford to do that on gym, but Decimate, I think they're struggling a little bit. And with Lycus having the potential to go up 4-2, 5-1 is still, there's still a chance. And your 7-1 could still be here. And with Lycus, the way that they're playing, you could be right.
Top floor approach, once again coming out for Lycus. Breach hatch over towards Logi. Doesn't seem like they'll opt to go for the breach and entry as they had done previously in the hands there of, I believe that time it was Aggro, who's now switched over to the Ayana. They're running out of attacking rounds to really work with. 2 more left in this half on top of this one. I'll say including this one. Maybe the phrase to say with it. Bears have already gained entry in towards Garage. Has not had to deal with needles down inside a sewer to really, or oil down to fight with. They even set up a drone there beforehand, noting that that was a dangerous foray in the first place. That'll make things even worse. Player down in break, taking shots up towards rafters. There's a player inside Cash, as well as one over towards red stairs. There is plenty of presence still here for Decimate, but they just haven't found the angle to work off of to find a pick, which is where Decimate tend to do best. When they don't get those first picks, Lycus have changed their strategy from the first map, and they look like a new team. It's just a matter of success. Rotero Jones sent out over towards Neo, but it's too little too late. Already getting 2 kills. Nade tossed in to join, and though we saw a chance for Lycus to go majorly down, 2 kills scrambled back in return, and they technically still are in this fight.
I mean, they're still here, but Twizzler could really get that final nail in the coffin, and that will be the nail in the coffin. As Aggro, you could tell, with that red and white flashing health, he is barely breathing. 1 bullet, even from the P90, I think should put him in the dirt. And Decimate can take this 1 minute. They get a round and potentially still keep an equal half alive, which they would need going into the attacking half. Because so far, a lot of times it really has been just on and off for both of these teams on the attack and on the defense. And Decimate, so far, they didn't have an amazing attack on Chalet, and they're going to have a better attack going into their second half, but so far, they still have a good chance to deposit themselves as Lycus' equals as we do finish round 5. The rambling is over, and we can focus on the next one.
Decimate have 1 more chance on the defense to tie things up. Honestly, I think it's a good chance to do so. I think at this point in time, Decimate having that last round go well, Needles actually cleaning up the last kill, the P90 actually doing something for you. You want a dog on it?
No, I love the P90. It is just does not do a lot of damage per bullet. And if you do not hit your headshots, it will not be your friend.
Neither does the Ronin. Neither technically does the SMG-11.
Yeah, but the SMG-11 is like disgusting because the recoil is very nice to you. Sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I think the SMG-11 is good because you can put a Mossberg in your primary and have an SMG.
That's true.
You know, this gun's great because it has pretty colors on it. Good skin. Great skin. Me
That's what
playing
you should
Valorant
always
or
base
CS:GO.
your gun analysis off of, Scott.
I would rather use the Phantom that I have a skin for than the Vandal I don't. That's the play, right? That's a Valorant reference for everybody out there.
Yeah,
I know that technically
get
you
out
can-
of here,
you
Valorant
can get
caster. You
skins in
called it the
R6 as
spike
well, but-
earlier.
I did.
Get out of here.
And now I got the mindset of a different esport through and through. Decimate, though, have the mindset here on R6, and they're starting to claw back ever so slowly after that first round and then the 3 rounds in a row they gave up. Lycus are having to re-pressure down to the basement site. Decimate have struggled to defend this. Lycus have done a wonderful job of taking that kitchen hatch, breaking the floorboards. Yes, they did lose round 1, but it was off the back of 2 picks instantaneously from Decimate getting cheeky in round 1. Disallowing that effectively means that Lycus can just do what they've done best, capitulate their aggression, direct towards site, and get clean-cut kills. Neo, arguably the best fragger for Decimate, their best chance in a one-on-one engagement, loses the one-on-one engagement. Now, what do you have left? Not a single player that has more than half the total kills of Neo.
And now you can't really take a lot of these equal engagements. Needles is just going to have to back all the way off down to the basement, probably through oil. And if Lycus are smart, which, I mean, they should be, they could realize that there aren't really roamers around the map anymore. And they can focus on the actual site itself. Last time they were here, that's what they were able to do, but they didn't have the entry. They had more time to actually focus on the utility, but I think at this point, killing Neo is much better than trying to maybe root out a shield or barbed wire or droning the player behind AC, because now your chances of actually winning the gunfights in a lot of these head-on engagements are just much better. And even Needles getting dealt a little bit of damage is going to hurt. Twizzler does peek his face, takes out Ozone, but he is not ready for Candle to rush down the stairs, get that refrag. So the floor is going to stay where it is, as aggro can just use that sledgehammer and open up any small holes that the attack still needs to. But the hard breach is still there. You still have a lot of players left alive that can really kill some decimated defenders.
I honestly like the sledge to destroy that central hall floorboards more than I like the buff. Yes, Skeleton Key is arguably safer with having the ability to clear that at distance, and it can do a better job of holding from within bar itself, clearing that soft wall and then using that to clear floorboards and that Kool-Aid wall. But the issue is past that. You have no nades to clear a shield that would be placed down in hall. You have no nades to clear the initial door frames, and you don't have a lot of potential pass-through memo. Bringing both the buck and the sledge means pocket hard breach as well as nades and so much floor destruction. It is overall a better strategy for Lycus, and it's been warranted them a lot of success. They'll get Spike down. I apologize once again. You said it to me earlier, now it's in my head. They'll get Diffuser down over towards Church, opting to ignore the approach in through that hatch in kitchen. Vocal now stuck in a 1v3, the most dire positions nearly imaginable, as one player up inside hatch, a second one top of main stairs to join, and then a third inside Memo. With the nades waiting, it is going to be a clear-cut victory round, a glorious closeout, and that will be your first half concluding with Lycus dominantly ahead 4-2.
Yeah, that you couldn't really defuse that spike, could he, Scott? It seems like he struggled to make it through. Couldn't defuse the spike. I'm sorry. I'll lay off. I know it was a little bit goofy, but with Decimate on the attack, this is their time. You either strike now or Lycus goes up 5-2. And at that point, with our series at really near a climax, if Lycus were able to win a round, closing that gap with all the momentum that's been in play, all the patterns that have been in all 3 maps, that gap seems almost impossible to close, if not highly improbable. So this is the make or break round for both of these teams. If Lycus lets Decimate get this attack on the basement side, that might not bode well for the other sides, because Decimate wasn't really able to hold down to the Lycus attack, and they won 2 rounds on their defense. And some of those I mean, Lycus just weren't able to win a lot of those 50-50 gunfights, which I think they still should be able to, because they have been shown to be the better aggressors in these gunfights, and I think they still will be at the end of the day.
Let's look at what we've seen come out for Lycus. Attacking-wise, a much better performance from them. Now with them switching over to the defense and opting for a somewhat aggressive extending style of play, especially the fact there is a player in the freezer right now, I'm expecting them to go for the early engagements against Decimate. And let's also keep in mind that Nook has been allowed to be played. I don't believe we saw Nook be brought out for Lycus on the attack. Decimate opting to bring it the very first chance they are given. It is Scoob opting to do so. Overall, I think it's a fairly even setup for these two teams, but Decimate have been in a bit of a downward spiral. They don't feel like they're the same team that took away map 1. It feels like they went on a vacation and then since then have been scrounging for paid time off. It just isn't a formula that's going to work for them unless they change things up entirely. They dropped into Logic, they've got some control, but that's not near where the basement is. You still got a whole floor left to clear, and you got time ticking against you.
Rocks in strip.
That was interesting.
Is there even any defenders over there?
Nope.
To hear it?
Nope.
I mean, you do have the player inside of bar, depending on how good their ears are, but there is an immediate refrag as Ozone for Twizzler. You lose the buck, and there is still the Ash with a lot of breaching charges on the attack, so not all is lost if you're trying to clear out that hallway and kitchen, but for the defenders, losing aggro will definitely hurt in the long run. As we reach past that 60-second margin, does the mute get away? No, Bryos could not slip through that rotate, so Candle is going to have to win the 1v4. He does get one, but a lot more is going to be asked from him here, Scott.
What about pea shooters? The T5 SMG can tend to be that, though its recoil is actually clean. The issue is you have to aim it to make it viable, and it's just slightly too low and down to the right. You miss the opportunity for that early headshot, and the AK-12 will punish you. Attacking Decimate will find themselves victorious in the first round of the second half, but they did the same thing in the first, meaning Lycus can still do the exact same thing they did in that first half of taking 3 in a row. They'd be done by that point, but taking 3 in a row and Decimate not really having a chance to truly respond. They'll opt to move up to that second floor of gym and bedroom, meaning that they'll probably extend over towards that cash room side. Some teams we've seen here in the SFCL have opted more so to defend Logi and construction as a whole, but doing so makes it so that highway is even more dangerous. And for the fact of the matter is, this map has the most direct points into a site than I think any other one here in Siege. And the highway and windows thereof are probably the biggest aggressors alongside the CCTV double wall. It just makes it so difficult to watch those angles. And Decimates, they like to use windows. We saw them do it on Chalet, and look what happened there.
I'm going over in my mind of how many areas you can enter bar stage from. You've got the soft wall from the hallway, you've got the soft wall from Logi, you've got billiards door, you've got kitchen hallway door, you've got the hatch, you've got the double door. Am I missing any? That's 6. 6 ways to enter the site, which is why you're really not seeing the defense actually hold on to the site. Mainly hold up above, because that is the greatest way to get a good survey of the area, but it does mean you have to hold up top. Lycus weren't really able to do that, though. On the previous round, they sent a couple players off site, and Decimate just crushed them. From there, they lost a couple of players. Scoob does go down, and there isn't an immediate trade coming out from Decimate, and that might be a big thing, because that is what they were able to do on basement. They lost an attacker, but were immediately able to trade out a defender, and that's not here anymore.
No longer having the chance for that refrag back. That has been the main go-to plan on Chalet and on Theme Park. Kill for kill, trade for trade. Lycus did the same thing when they were attacking. Decimate not given the chance to do so could be a big blunder. They are playing fairly stringent away from each other. No one necessarily too close to the other. Closest we see now are the two players in Garage. Needle working in Rafters and Neo that was working over towards Break Room initially. They'll send out a Rotero drone and looks like they'll... I don't know. I don't even know what the heck they're doing with that. They thought they wanted to go up. They thought they wanted to go down. I'm not too sure, but it falls short. They just don't find any success where they need to. A nade is sent out over towards the cash room side, and the second one sent actually does find its target towards Handle, meaning the Frost and the 9mm now off the board. Brios will be forced to join them. Same thing now with Neo, who takes a stray shot from Ozone. Equaling the odds to a 3-on-3 with 55 seconds still left, V. And Decimate are starting to send Util in towards the objective, as it's not so easy when you run out of that, and they do not have much remaining in the pocket.
One thing Lycus can thank. Twizzler does not have any nades left, Needles does not have any Roteros left, and Focal does not have any Selmas left. So that hot tub wall, it's not getting open. Focal does get flashed as he walks into Lodge. He's just gonna blindly spray, hopes to get something, but nothing instead is revealed. And now with all the defenders onto the site, Aggro gets one and Needles walks into sight, but Cryptix is right there to get the kill. And Focal, he was Lodge, he was in blind, and he's still in Lodge. He goes in the sight for the peek onto the player and stares. Instead, Ozone, who went on a tear in this round, keeps Lycus ahead of Decimate an arm's length just so they can feel a little bit comfortable about their lead.
All you need is that slight buffer. All you need is that extra little edge above the competition. That means one round here or there for Decimate isn't going to be the end of the road for Lycus. They're the fan favorites. They were the SFCL stat line favorites. And they're looking to come out of this one being the only one to survive in the SFCL. How long that lasts, I'm going to have to tell V. But at the very least, they'll stay here longer than Decimate as long as they can close things out. They'll opt to go towards the bar side here, much like we saw Decimate do. Maybe Lycus will be a bit more successful for this one. You need that castle to go ahead and lock down that billiards big window. You also need to have some extension over towards Strip that disallows the breach onto those walls that can make it a really big pain to actually defend. Some teams will opt to move into bathroom and leave a player there. Some teams will opt just for a yokai and play down below and have that information. But Decimate played passively. They completely abandoned sight. They played an extremely aggressive roam, and that cost them ultimately the round. Because Lycus played a very slow play through Strip, they worked in through bathroom, they had control over towards Central Hall, and they were only netting themselves the occasional frag that gave them control of the first floor that Decimate had to retake, and it's not a fun site or a fun floor to retake, and they just fell victim to their own happenstance.
I think Decimate, when they've been able to get the entry, that is when they've looked good. When they've taken Lycus by surprise, shut them down very early on. They've been able to really find a way off of that. They don't stay stagnant or just wait too long. But that's the problem, is when they get that actual entry kill. They don't always, and I mean, there's a reason why Lycus is up 5-3, is because very early on, they are the ones to get the entry, whether it's Aggro, whether it's Candle, whether it's Ozone, all of them are just around the map, making sure that Decimate never truly feels safe wherever they are. And despite being bar stage as a player over in Logi, Aggro does get droned out. He has to watch the hatch, and he has to watch the hallway, and he has to be aware that frag grenades could fly through this hatch. One from Neo, potentially over by Hot Tub. Twizzler from the hatch. If Aggro finds a way out of this, I will be very surprised, but the fact that he's still alive, I think, is big enough.
Kill finally gained for Decimate. A nade sent through to take down Brios. Neo's still in a bit of a rough state. Maybe you're aware there could still be a presence on that second floor. I believe only one player is still up there. And Neo has a wonderful shot onto Aggro to conclude for yet another frag. Cryptix takes a lick of damage off screen. Forced to use a stim and forced to fight back. Neo needs to be finished off. Sitting at about 25 HP. The same can be said for the rest of Decimate. Maybe not regarding the HP point, but needing to be killed off. Ozone has to step up through Central Staircase. Does find one. Flanks to another, but doesn't find it. It's Candle to take down two. That equalizes us now to the 2-on-2 with 45 seconds remaining. Candle still lingering about on the second floor. Yes, Decimate have control over towards first, but what they're lacking is everything else. Diffuser, I believe, is still up on second. I don't think they have the most easily accessible idea about how to retake that point, because Lycus can just play as if it's defending master bedroom. They can play around these corners. Yes, they get a kill back. Ozone, though, will fall, meaning a 1v1 for the ages. They're spotted over towards Dog. It does not matter. Needles finds the kill, and out of nowhere, Decimate still managed to pull this one out.
I think they dropped the hatch at almost the exact same time. So they hit the ground at the exact same time, and at that moment, Needles just had the gun, and Decimate take a timeout. They opt to not use it in round 5. Instead, we're at round 10. They win the round. They have gotten the edge so far on this second half, and instead, they take the pause. Whether it's kind of forcing Lycus in this uncertain mindset. Say, why did Decimate take a timeout? What are they planning? It's that reverse psychology with Decimate. Now, right now, so we've been to Basement, Gym, and Bar, with the only win from Lycus coming from Gym. So 3 sites, I think at this point, Basement is probably going to be the play for Lycus. Their change either has to be with how they play their roam, or even if they roam at all. Maybe send one player off the site, set themselves up for a very heavy anchor that is designed to waste time, drain utility, and make it so when that execution phase comes, the attack never really has a big in. And I'm right. We're going to Basement. We're still having a Castle, a Mute. Those are really the only 2 designed for draining utility. Instead, I think the Oryx and the Alibi, they might be centered around playing offside and Candle. Well, he just leaps offside immediately.
Honestly, I think taking the time out to kind of revel in the victory, as well as being able to completely conclude what you're going to do for the remainder round, is huge for Decimate. Decimate 50% of the time, which is a solid statistic, even though we've only seen it twice. 50% of the time, they've had a big spree of rounds after their timeout, which is important. You get one for free. Why not take the chance? If you were going to lose the round anyway, you were going to lose it anyways. Take the chance to give yourself that edge. Take the chance to opt in. You don't use it, it's just a waste. You had no chance in the first place. But Decimate taking this one after a win is a bit different. Gives them a bit more time, as well as being able to say what went right, why did Lycus play the way they did, and what can we change, despite us taking the victory. Basement's on the chopping block. Decimate will opt for Brava here once again, trying to steal as much utility away from Lycus as they possibly can. A very drone-centric team, in all honesty. The Brava camps, as well as the Rotero drones from your Flores, mean that pretty much all utility that Lycus could bring to the table, whether those be shields like we do see in the hands of your Alibi, or it just be mute jammers and castle barricades, pretty much won't last as long as they want them to.
Especially with how much destruction the attack has. Like, okay, there's gone 6, frag grenades, breaching charges, sledgehammers, aggro is gone. There is Ozone, who is right there to take down Scoob, but I mean, you've always, like I said, Decimate has always been able to pivot off of that opening kill, and Scoob going down does lessen that, but if Decimate can work off of Ozone, if they can work off of Bryos, who is around Jim, it's really coming up orange for them, and it seems like they are as they pressure these defenders away, keep them away. Neo is not aware of this player hiding just behind Bryos, sucked in his stomach. He does go down, but he took down Neo, the fragger, the person with frags as well, and it leaves it in a 3v3. We're past that halfway point, and already, I think Lycus, they've gotten those entries, they've gotten those big players, but will that be enough for the execution phase?
Still have to be wary of the fact that kitchen hatch can still be dropped upon. Terror drones still going out here for needles. Maybe looking to clear away one of the castle barricades in play. They'll detonate, maybe clear away the shield that was also down for Lycus, considering that we do not see a sledge brought out for Decimate, meaning that the skeleton key alone cannot clear away a shield that would be placed in that central hall. They'll use both Selmas now to clear away that kitchen hatch, guaranteeing position from there. Needles does not have the chance. They've guaranteed that they can't get in the dirt, which means they can't have another angle to work from. Decimate are very slow with this, V. It doesn't feel like they've given themselves very many options for entry, which means that Lycus's line of sight is going to be easily upon the last few remaining players. The very last piece of pocket util available for Decimate is the flash. It goes down. Does it blind the player? I don't know. Zero looks away, but I'll tell you what, Twizzler can't survive the onslaught of the shorty. Takes down one. Needles looking to swing in through that church wall. They will start to put down the diffuser and maybe get this one up in time, as it will in fact be guaranteed. Candle and Cryptics find a kill apiece. It is a huge flank for Lycus, and they're going to give him the big shake of the head as well. Lycus coming back with a big round. 6-4, match point met. Lycus want to move on.
And they've got that drive, they've got that power, because it's about drive, it's about power, Scott. And they've reached match point. They have gotten here after a very long series tonight. A lot of emotions are going both ways, but I mean, we've gotten past that fabled 7-3 scoreline, and I think Decimate, there is enough room for them to get to take us to overtime, but we have to go to gym bedroom. And I think I don't know if the statistics are going to really follow what I'm going to say, but I think defense are really now starting to favor gym bedroom. It's seeming to be a little bit more of a primary site to rival basement. It's the primary second floor site over CCTV at this point, and I mean, it's because CC is done to death. You could do a lot more with a lot more operators on the defensive side on the gym bedroom. There's already 3 drones are gone. Aggro, okay, 2. I think I mistook some of the pixels for an X, but Aggro, you call that man the drone hunter. He's already eliminated a good 20% of Decimate's info.
I mean, there are quite a few pixels, and maybe it makes sense to misconstrue a couple of them. By the way, Lycus now looking premed for a 7-4 victory. We finally stepped away from a 7-3 split. Decimate have at least guaranteed that. But they have a lot they've got to go through to get past that point. Decimate, you may be playing your last round in the SFCL. Your fans may be seeing you for the last time here on this channel for at least this season, maybe in general. You guys don't make it next or whatever goes on. You gotta make sure that you bring out at least the best. The best as soon as you can, because this could be the end of it. 50 seconds already having ticked away, and Decimate have barely gained an entry in towards this map. Neo into rafters, yes, but the Selmas are just now detonating on that CCTV wall, and with still a presence being inside of red stairs for Lycus, that means there is going to be a concern for a player in cash, and they don't have anyone pressuring towards highway, which means a cutoff angle to be held from cash room isn't there. So it's only unlucky trade after unlucky trade, and it does go in the way of Lycus, with nary a chance of a refrag until Candle for some reason decides to escape from their foothold and walk into Bryos' arms.
But Lycus, every single kill they get reverberates in the mind of Decimate that much larger, and the fact that they were only able to find Candle, who, yes, is that kill leader of Lycus, but one thing that I've heralded through Lycus the entire night has just been their consistency throughout the entire team. You take out Candle, you still got to worry about Aggro. You still got to worry about Ozone, Bryos, who all have 9 kills. 2 away from Candle. So you've taken 1 finger away from the hand that can still do wonders with just 4 fingers. And now time is really starting to weigh on this attack. There's not many options inside of the site. Frostomats are going to be big deciders of this fight because you can't look down and kill the player shooting at you at the exact same time with no frag grenades, no Roteros. Is Decimate going to find their way out of this very scary situation that they find themselves in, Scott?
There's a reason why Frost is getting that rework. Such a constant threat. It's not just for the bronze rankers down in the trenches. Sometimes it's for the top players as well. You can't draw your sight lines this late in the round downwards. Kill netted for both sides. Lycus will maintain the man advantage off the back of that. Aggro with that Solus still lingering about, has their presence over towards that jacuzzi wall, and a player inside bathroom, but it's still too little too late. Aggro's head off their shoulders. Scoob falls quickly afterwards. Needle in the 1v1 now, forcing after a 3k. Time is not on their side. They can't get the diffuser down. They have to push for the kill. They're running to the bathroom. There's no chance. Lycus find themselves the victory, retreating from site as fast as they humanly can, and that will be all she wrote. Lycus will be your victors. They will be your go-to denominators here, as they will be moving on here in SFCL. Say goodbye to Decimate. They're done and done. That's it, V.
I mean, you could say they're decimated.
I'm gonna leave.
Yeah, that pun has been there. I think we have to kind of give ourselves a little pat on the back for not doing that pun the entire night, but it's the last time we're gonna see them in this season of SFCL. Maybe the entire Decimate brand logo, who knows? They got decimated in map 2, in map 3. Lycus do the biggest pivot that they possibly can. They changed up their strategy, and it worked for them. 7-3. 7-4. They got the job done, Scott, and the chips were down. I mean, we were laying into this team. I think we maybe a little too much, especially in hindsight, but I mean, maybe sometimes the best thing is tough love.
The number one way to avoid the casters berating you and your playstyle is to not play like total cheeks. I think that's
good.
That's really the best we can say for it. You pick your map, Chalet. I root for you because if you pick Chalet, I pretty much am guaranteeing that I'm rooting for you. Caster bias is true. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And you still play like Cheeks. Just a horrible performance on a map that you felt confident enough to pick first. Yes, your performance in map 2 and map 3 were really steadfast, really solid. Your map 3 performance is really good. Yes, you gave up a couple more rounds than you did previously on map 2. But I still think like your gameplay in general was to another elevated level, which was impressive considering how much you evolved as a team and individuals between map 1 and 2. Why didn't you play that first map like that? I don't know. But I'm sure you're still plenty happy. But you can't do that again because it only gets tougher from here. You're no longer facing teams that were sitting 12th, 11th, 10th, 9th, 8th on the scoreboard. You're facing teams that have earned their stay and are looking to send you out their way as well.
I know you've got a lot of, you had a lot of questions for Lycus, like what happened on map 1. We can actually ask that of Lycus.
You can ask
I can. We don't want to have Scott stand for 5 minutes.
Terrible.
Oh goodness, that would be horrible to do. Anyway, Scott for the no. Yes. It is me with the interview. We've got Aggro, and I think there's some really interesting things that we could definitely talk about. So, goodbye, Scott. And, well, hello, Aggro. You guys toughed it out. You won against Decimate. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, so starting off, I mean, map 1 was not your best. I want to know, why did you guys pick Chalet, and what do you think the problem was there?
So Chalet has always been one of our better maps, but we are historically known to be a very, very bad first map team. So we didn't have a warm-up before the game, and kind of screwed us. So, you know, it was a rough first map, but we brought it out in the end, you know?
I mean, that was going to be one of my things. Is just, was it not being warmed up? You guys kind of looked like a different team. You looked better, like better versions of yourself in map 2. And was that the pivot from map 1 into map 2? Is that you really just found your groove?
Yeah. So we always just use we always use a warm up to kind of like warm up the comms, warm up the guns, and we weren't really able to do that. So that's why we looked like completely different than we normally do, you know? And not gonna lie, shit kind of looked like a Batman mission, if you know what I mean.
No, yeah, I mean, I kind of going all the way back. How did you guys kind of size up Decimate going this? I mean, they've got some names. They've got Neo. They've got Scoob. They've been around in T3. What were your thoughts on them and the team going into this?
So we know Neo's a very strong gun. You know, he was on AAA. They picked him for a reason, and he's a solid player. But we weren't really worried about anyone in particular. You know, we've played against these guys throughout the past couple of years many times, and they have Baron as a coach. So I'm sure some of the former play style that we had reflected on their gameplay, which kind of helped us. And we just played our own game, really.
Yeah, with Baron being an ex-staff member of Lycus, he's now the head coach of Decimate. So, and I mean, one last question. As you go into playoffs, is there one team or one player that may have already made it that you're kind of pining to play against or maybe take down as you move into playoffs?
Not particularly. I mean, getting revenge on regular aerial rise would be great. But yeah, no, there's no one in particular. I think we're just gonna, steer forward, play our own game.
Yeah, and you have the extra round to definitely focus on that. So, I mean, that's it for me. Anything you want to say before you head out for the night?
Just shout out to all my teammates. Ozone, Beast IGL. This guy's a fucking great mind. Sorry to curse, but he has a great mind. Adam and Bryce, just amazing guns. They're always on their game. They're always, ready to play. They're always focused. And Crip, just a solid clutch player, solid hard breach and smoke. Like, you can't ask for anything better, honestly.
All right. Well, it's great to see you, and it's great to see this team get that result and get into playoffs. So as we go into the playoffs, I will wish you luck.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You did as well. So, Scott, you got the answers that you needed. So I think that is probably the best answer as to why they may have seemed like better versions of themselves, is because they were actually themselves in map 2.
Maybe that is the case. And overall, I think a solid performance and a solid game to come out from them as a whole. I especially liked Aggro in general, who had a pretty solid performance on map 1 and 2. Map 1 obviously less than the others. Map 2 I liked the big play we saw from Aggro on map 3, where they did have a big closeout for a kill in the first half against Needles. But it's hard to move past Chalet. It's hard to move past Chalet.
Come on, all right, that's the rear view mirror thing. Come on, Scott.
It's especially gonna be hard for Aggro to move past that $15,000 fine we're about to slap him with for cursing on broadcast. He's not gonna enjoy that.
That's like our entire budget.
Yeah, it's everything. Yeah, instead of getting the prize pool, he's getting double that against him, paying the fine. That would be awful if we enabled that in a Team 3 scene. Make these kids go bankrupt before they even have a chance to go back to college when they retire from the amateur scene or the semi-pro scene, because a lot of the players from SFCL have moved on to that, and even PL as well. But either way here, V, I think that's all we have here for the night overall. A good series, a fun one, and one we expected to reach all three because I was on broadcast and had other plans that I definitely had, and did not just want to play a video game with my friends, as these players technically got to do, which, lucky them.
Yeah, now you got the time. You've got the time. Everybody has got the time, because we are done with this round of SFCL. We're done with the night. And, I mean, we're still in the Swiss stage. We're not done, but we have those deciders. I believe, I don't know if we have the bracket, but I know West Garfield Park, Outlast, Lycus Empire are there, and I think the last one is Make a Wish. So them in Orbit are going to be those final two that I didn't mention. It is going to be a good round. The final best of threes before we head into playoffs. You're going to want to make sure that you tune into that action. But I believe that is going to be next week, not the rest of this one, as the gamers for Borders qualifiers will be the rest of this week. So we will make sure you tune in next week when that happens. Make sure you have a great night. We will see you then.